across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you for the next 3 hours, and of course, as usual, at midnight, it is your chance to talk back. And at midnight, I want to talk to you about speeding and speed limits, because there's a big report out talking about the fact that we are a speeding culture. There's been thousands and thousands of us caught out for speeding, and not just because the speed limit is being reduced to the ridiculous 20 miles per hour, and people are caught just doing a little bit over that, although there are about 30,000 people who've been caught doing that, which is a money-making scheme, isn't it? But also people driving at speeds like 161 miles per hour. That was caught out in Shropshire. Mind you, I know Shropshire really well. There's not many roads you can drive like that, that speed in Shropshire. But anyway, are we a speeding culture? And are the speed limits fit for purpose? Because actually, when you look at the motorways at 70 miles an hour, that seems to be ridiculously slow. And when I lived in Germany, of course, the autobahns, it was you drive to the road conditions, and that seemed to work. I mean, I didn't notice any major pile-ups the whole time. So are the speed, because given the cars now are so much safer, all this, the braking and everything is so much safer, should speed limits be looked at again? Are they too low? Are they out of date? And have you ever been done for speeding? I never have. Hand on heart, never. I was stopped once by a police officer for speeding, but all he did was tell me off. And that was it. I didn't get a speeding ticket or anything. I didn't have to. And I'd love to know as well if you've ever done a speed awareness course, because of course they're a bit of a con as well, aren't they? They're making millions out of that every single year. Have you done a speed awareness course? That's actually, the thought of doing a speed awareness course does keep me honest. I can't bear the idea of having to go and do that. But anyway, I would love to hear from you on that. Just a little bit lighter, a little bit less political this morning for us. I thought we'd just lighten it up as it's a Wednesday. So that's coming up, and also coming up, Vincent Moss will be here in the studio to go through the papers and the top stories of the day. Steve Berry will be joining us, a former Top Gear presenter. He's going to be joining us to talk about speeding in this country, and are we a speeding country? Ashok Kumar will be joining me to talk about these extraordinary political situation here at the moment. I mean, Reform are now saying that they did predict that people wouldn't stand against them, but I'm not so sure, because I think this just is making Nigel Farage. I think it's an embarrassment, the fact that nobody will put anybody up. I don't believe it's fear. Because they lost to him last time, so they'd be quite aware that they might lose again this time. But I don't think it's fear. I don't think they're chickening out. I just think they're playing a game. And also, part of that annoys me, because politics shouldn't be about game playing. It should be about serving the people of this country. And of course, with Keir Starmer being on his way out, Andy Burnham on his way in, I don't think there's an awful lot being done in terms of looking after our best interests. So we'll be talking about that as well, and the NATO alliances and what's happening with that. So all of that is coming up on the show, but do get in touch about driving. It's, I think we all we all used to love driving. I used to absolutely love it. Now, every time I go out and take the car out, I'm concerned that I'll get a fine for something I didn't even know that I'd done wrong. Driving up the wrong road that has suddenly become closed to all traffic, but there's a tiny little sign on the side that tells you that. And I feel so sorry for cab drivers and taxi drivers as well, because they're getting done left, right and centre. I don't know how they get through the day without getting a ticket of some sort or other. So I just want to talk to you about that as well. Have they taken the joy out of driving? Does anybody just go for a joyride anymore? A nice Sunday drive? Does anybody do anything that enjoyable with their car anymore? Or are you, like me, really concerned about the tickets and if you do a U-turn in the wrong place? Or those are the things that I've got tickets for. And driving up a road that I've driven up 150 times before and then get a ticket because this time they'd decided it was a low traffic neighbourhood. So all of those things have kicked the joy out of driving. So I want to talk to you about that as well. Do you still enjoy the process of getting in your car and driving anywhere, or has it just been utterly, utterly destroyed by all these rules, all these fines, all these cameras, all of those things that really make driving an absolute misery? So I do want to talk to you about that as well. I think we're having trouble getting our guest, which is an interesting way to start the programme, because I wanted to talk to our guest about the NATO summit, which is defined by geopolitical... I mean, it's just not been a very good NATO summit. First of all, the people gathering in Ankara wanted to talk a lot about Russia and NATO's response to Russia. That was what they wanted to. But of course, it's been overshadowed by Donald Trump, who sort of breezed in there and shattered diplomatic norms, declared the Iran ceasefire over, and then threatened again with strikes tonight. As far as I'm aware, there have been more strikes. I did hear that. Also, the attacking NATO allies for not helping him, and particularly attacking Spain, and starting and saying there would be a freeze of trade with Spain, which would be an interesting thing to do since it's part of the EU. Also, reigniting the argument over Greenland. So he just goes in there and sets off a hand grenade. Behind the scenes, shaken allies work to prove self-reliance, passing the Ankara Declaration with a 3.5% GDP defence spending target by 2035. There was some good news stories. NATO secured a $50 billion in new arms, including GlobalEye and Triton surveillance aircraft. They also launched a $40 billion drone-edged AI initiative and solidified long-term support for Ukraine that's desperately trying to project Allied stability. The family photograph was interesting. That's when all the NATO members get together. And there were a few people who weren't from NATO as well. And everybody, of course, was looking to see how Meloni and Trump would respond to each other. And if you'll remember, there was this big spat between Meloni and Trump at their last meeting, where Trump was saying that she was begging for a photograph with him, that her popularity was so low that she desperately wanted a photograph taken with Donald Trump. She said that Italy doesn't beg for anything and that she certainly didn't do that, and was also saying, why does he treat his allies worse than he treats his enemies? It's extraordinary. So everybody was looking to see if they would cross swords or they would even speak to each other, which they did not. So apparently Meloni looked to the ground and didn't even acknowledge him, with a sort of fixed, icy smile on her face. They used to be really good mates. She was the only foreign leader, I believe, that went to his inauguration. So that's how close they once were. But he's managed to destroy that alliance as well. And he apparently just walked past. Donald Trump did, of course, have a few comments to make about Keir Starmer, but basically Keir Starmer was the invisible man at this NATO conference because everybody knows that he's on his way out. So nobody really was that interested in talking to Keir Starmer. One of my favourite questions that I have to say was asked by a journalist, a young journalist, who I've just seen, actually, my producer sent it to me, where he said to Mark Rutte, who's the head of NATO at the moment, the president of NATO, he said, you sit next to Donald Trump when he's saying things like he's going to, that Iran is scum and that he wants to take Greenland and, slagging off his allies and all of that kind of thing. You sit next to Trump when he's doing that. does that not affect your self-esteem that you don't say anything? So that was a brilliant, brilliant question. Of course, Rutte didn't really answer that. He just said, well, I've got to give praise to Donald Trump because of the strength of NATO. But yeah, it's been an interesting NATO summit. It's over now. It's just 2 days. But there's a lot to ask about what went on. And Dr. Armamudian, sorry, has joined me now. We finally got you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. What did you make of overall of the NATO summit? It seemed to just not really achieve what they set out to achieve.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. And second, if the President Trump's goal before entering the summit was to kind of establish the, let's say, the collective response or a union among the members of the NATO in the event of the war with Iran or resumption of the military conflict, it doesn't seem to be concluded so far. It doesn't seem to that the rest of the NATO members are yet on board with it. But what we can also understand from his statements in the meeting, specifically speaking, the one that he mentioned that the memorandum of the understanding that had been concluded between two parties in mid-June is no longer exists or it's over. It shows that we are at a kind of a crossroad. This crossroad can be a dangerous one because that statement was accompanied by the United States revoking suspension of the sanctions against Iran's oil and gas and industry. So, and suspending those sanctions was one of the articles of the memorandum of the understanding. So Iranians are going to respond to that, and I believe the response is going to be beyond attacking on the cargoes and other issues. One of the options they have, which is a very risky option, is to close the Strait of the Hormuz and shut it down again. The Iranians, since the beginning of the war, they've been clear on making a statement that if the Iranian oil doesn't go through the Strait of the Hormuz for them, there is no other purpose that led other countries to export the oil. So United States then have to answer to that, Iranian tactic, and the United States most likely is going to answer to Iran's probable shutting down of the Strait of the Hormuz by restoring the naval blockade, which because of this memorandum of understanding was also lifted. If all these three things happens, the revoking of the Iran, suspending of Iran sanctions, the closure of the Strait of the Hormuz, and the restoration of the naval blockade, we basically will go back to the conclusion of the memorandum of understanding. This is going to be a severe setback. This is going to basically, to a great extent, paralyzes, if not neutralizes, the memorandum of the understanding.
Yeah, my understanding, I think I read just before I came in that they had decided they were going to close the Strait of Hormuz. The thing is that you've got Donald Trump calling them crazy, calling them scum, saying that he can't be bothered, he's not interested anymore, he doesn't, I mean, some of the language that Donald Trump used today was, I think, beneath the president, beneath any president and any leader of a country, particularly when you're trying to negotiate a peace deal. I mean, you can't call somebody scum and then expect them to toe the line. Just briefly, do you think that it is unhelpful the way that Trump talks about Iran, or doesn't it make any difference?
I don't think so. It serves the United States' interest in any ways because, look, this wave and a stage of the conflict, the Iranian attacks on the cargoes, which resulted in this whole shebangs right now. At least from the Iranian point of view, when they try to justify it, it was a response to the threats that President Trump earlier on made. That if the negotiation doesn't conclude in a deal, they will attack Iran and wrap up the whole infrastructure in 1 hour. So these kind of tones make it harder for Iranians who are pro-negotiation. We have to keep in mind that there is a great deal of division in Iran's political machinery. Not everybody is on board with the negotiation. The hardliners, many in IRGC are not. And this kind of a language was going to serve their interests. In addition, this kind of a language comes from the place of frustration. You also, in a militarily speaking, don't want your enemy find you frustrated. Because once you signal that you're frustrated, you're telling them this is the pain point, this is the pressure point. I am frustrated because you leveraged it. So why they should stop from pressing that? And I don't think so Iranian are about to stop. I think they got the message very clear, not in a way that President Trump wanted it, but they got a message that they shouldn't have heard from the first place.
What's interesting about this, obviously, the NATO summit, is that this war is outside of NATO. There's the Iran war between Iran, America, and Israel is not a NATO war.
Yes.
So there would have been some disappointment, perhaps, that so much attention was being paid to Donald Trump's frustration with what he started in Iran, and not looking at, clearly we've got Zelensky on the screen now, looking at the threats, the very real threat, an ongoing threat from Russia in much more detail.
This is a very good point, and I think the issue is a little bit complicated for the members of the NATO and what makes things complicated, while the war with Iran is outside of the sphere of the NATO, it by no means falls the category of the Article 5. If you look at the rhetoric of the U.S. statesmen, President Trump and Secretary of the State Marco Rubio, they are kind of conditioning the situation in war with the war in Ukraine. We have seen it since the beginning of the Iran war on the February of the 28th. The American officials criticizing that why the Europeans are not chipping in, contributing, or supporting. And they usually come with this after that we in Ukraine didn't have any direct interest, which is debatable, but we got involved. We extract a great deal of support of the Ukraine to protect Europe. That's the primary goal, to protect Europe. So we did our share. Now you need to do your share in the case of the Iran. However, from the Europeans' point of view, this is a very different matter. The war in Ukraine began by the Russia's blunt aggression. So the Europeans and the Americans and NATO, in a way, getting indirectly involved was a response to the aggression of the third party country to an area which has a great deal of geographical proximity to the Europe, the mainland of the NATO. The war in Iran, at best, can be considered as a preemptive war. It is not a defensive war. It is not a war that Iranian began. The United States may have very valid concerns regarding Iran's nuclear proliferation, but evidently the war began by the United States and Israel in midst of the negotiation. So justification of it and selling it out to the European public, who chose the representatives and the electors as a defensive war in a way that the war in Ukraine is going to be very hard. But it's not something that President Trump right now is aligned with it. He wants Europe to be involved. He likes the idea of being able to also blame Europeans, because it helps him with the domestic politics. Because at the end, if the war doesn't go in a way that he wants, he can go to the American public and says that, well, Europeans didn't help us too. The blame doesn't go all on me. It's a collective, responsibility.
I mean, but he didn't talk to anybody before he did it. I mean, again, I know that Mr. Trump is very good at rewriting history to fit his own story, but it is an extraordinary thing to expect other countries just to, without being asked, without being consulted, without an article being triggered, without Article 4 followed by Article 5, and debates and questions being asked, because that's what would happen if it was a defensive war, as has happened historically before. It seems that, but nobody seems to be standing up to Donald Trump and giving him these home truths, let alone Mark Rutte, who called him daddy. I mean, I find it extraordinary that nobody's giving Donald Trump a history lesson, or at least a lesson in how NATO works.
This is a very good comment, and I think the European statements by nature are not necessarily more calculated, but they are better in having their priorities in line, and they are really good at not making things personal. And I think during these couple of years with President Trump, they got that understanding that making things personal with President Trump doesn't resolve any problem. Probably is going to make it complicated. So in a war with Iran and the legal issues and the matters that you rightfully mentioned, they don't want to challenge him, because they do understand if they challenge President Trump on one singular issue, the conflict, the dispute wouldn't end there. It would spill over other matters and things that has priority for the Europe, be as the issue with the Greenland or the continuous of the support of the Ukraine. And we also should be mindful that President Trump in the last 10 days, in a very soft, delicate way, has began again his discussions on the Greenland. I
Oh,
think he
yeah.
at least brought it once. And that's a message to Europe. And I believe the Europeans are making a comprehensive analysis of issue over to where, when, and how to confront President Trump, and when, where, and how to not confront him.
But isn't it just a case of trying to appease him and hope that he doesn't, you know, that's what it feels like. It feels like, look, if we suck up to Donald Trump, he might not take Greenland. You know, I mean, he might just not do that. But we've seen with Donald Trump that sucking up to him doesn't really make that much difference. I mean, Britain got the same tariff deal as the Taliban got, you know, after inviting him to meet the king twice. So it doesn't seem that sucking up actually does that much good. And I think that's what I find frustrating in the way the world treats this man.
I think the Europeans are understanding that. They are coming to that conclusion. And I think they are understanding also the nature of the relationship with the United States is going to evolve. We don't know is going to be for the better or worse direction after President Trump leaves the office, but is evolving. And we are seeing some sign of it, which are slow, but they are taking place. The idea of forming a European military command and having Europe having its own independent military infrastructure and military machinery from NATO, which United States of America, respectively, is the top, the high command of it, the top one player of it. It shows that the Europeans are reaching that conclusion that the previous and traditional modus operandi of the dealing with the Americans and cooperating with the Americans and the status quo that governed the NATO and the relationship among the member of the NATO has changed. And United States and the European Union and European countries need to have much more independent approach. We are seeing with the independent within Scandinavian nations, they are trying to form their own unified Air Force Command. We are seeing it in the discussion among all the other European countries led previously by France, but now Germany seems to be joined to it to form a European army. I think they are the signs of it, but they do understand that it's going to take time. It will take Europe time, resources, great deal of patience to be independent or to be relatively independent from the American security umbrella. And they don't want to make that time or run out of the time by making things worse with the United States or fueling the conflict. So they are choosing in a manner and a strategic patience, in my view, rather than necessarily an appeasement, to find a better, landing time, if it makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I get it. I just find it frustrating. The thing is, also Donald Trump did mention about pulling troops out of Europe. That's not the first time that he's suggested that. But again, they're there for America as much as they are there for Europe, because they've got more bases around the world than every other country combined, by a long way, because it's good. It's also good for America.
It is very good for America. When we go back to the Cold War area, one of the main reasons that the United States had the troops and these air defense systems in Europe was actually the protection of the American mainland.
Yeah.
Back in the Cold War era, and today still it's the case because of the Russian threat, the United States established 3 layers of air defenses against any attack from the Russia. One was in mainland America, the second was in Atlantic Ocean, and the third one is in European mainland. So Europe functioned as the buffer zone. And this is a great deal of a strategic advantage that the US had in the challenges with Russia and will have. So I believe the Americans' military officials are going to be very calculative and cautious in depriving themselves of this option. Yes, that would hurt the Europe in a short term. Europe evidently would step up its game in expanding its military. But in a long run, this is going to hurt the American interest.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is why when I listen to Donald Trump's threats sometimes, I do like I said, wonder if anybody's explained that to him, that these are vital to American defence. They've also got areas of the world where they've got stockpiles of weaponry for their use as well. On the whole, looking at this NATO summit that seemed to be consumed with Donald Trump, did it go the way that the international community wanted it to go, do you think? Did they get what they wanted from Trump? Did they, was appeasing him the right thing to do on this occasion?
It's very hard to say because we don't know what kind of a decision they made over the Ukraine. This matters the most right now to the Europe, even more than Iran. If on the Middle East front theater, if the goal was to bring de-escalation, definitely this is not the direction. What currently is happening between Iran and the United States is much more dangerous than what happened on June 7, when Iran attacked Israel as a retaliation of the Israeli attack to the southern Beirut. This has the potential to not only lead to the collapse of the ceasefire, but also the actual resumption of the war. United States today stated that they attacked at 100 different sites inside Iran. Iranians are going to respond. Iranians are going to continue illegally harass the international maritime and the cargoes traveling through the Strait of Hormuz. They may also want to trigger the proxies across the region.
Yeah.
We are right now in a setback position. We may be able to recover from it, but right now the horizon is not really optimistic when it comes to the de-escalation. So, if we have to wait and watch, and hopefully we will find out what was the goal and the agenda the European and other counterpartners of the NATO had. But if it was anything had to do, it was about the de-escalation in the Middle East. It has not been achieved. But what came or what decision been made about the Ukraine, we have to wait for it.
Fascinating stuff. Great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Arman Mahmoodian, their International Affairs Analyst focusing on the Middle East and Russia and Research Fellow at the University of South Florida's Global and National Security Institute. Right, just before I take a break, the World Cup, of course, is still going and it's well and truly in full swing. We're marking a massive month of football in style here on Talk. How would you feel about pocketing an amazing 26 grand, completely tax-free? Just picture that heading straight into your bank account. Imagine what you could do with that. Well, if your balance needs a serious lift this summer, here is everything that you need to know.
For your chance to win, visit talk.tv/win or text TALK to 83338 by 6 p.m. on the 20th of July 2026. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or send your name and number by post to Comp 1, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP. To arrive by midnight on the 23rd of July 2026. 18 plus, UK residents only. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you. Just a quick reminder that we have Vincent Moss coming into the studio at the top of the hour, and also we'll be talking about the fact that we are a speeding culture here in the UK. But we had some news to break for you, and that is a decision has been made, I guess by the Speaker of the House of Commons, because it would be him that made this decision, that should Count Binface win the by-election, he will not be allowed to wear the bin in the Commons. Just think about that for a moment. The fact that that decision has had to be made in all seriousness is extraordinary. Where are we? What's happened to the world? Well, as Prime Minister Keir Starmer attended the NATO summit, not that anybody noticed, I have to be honest with you, Deputy PM David Lammy faced the Commons today. The session was heavily overshadowed by Nigel Farage's shock resignation as MP for Clacton. Farage triggered a snap by-election following intense scrutiny over a £5 million cryptocurrency gift and further undeclared financial ties to a convicted fraudster. Well, in a rare unified front, Labour, the Conservatives, Lib Dems and the Greens have refused to field candidates, boycotting what they call a fake election designed to evade the standards probe, which it will not. Only Lawrence Fox, leader of the Reclaim Party, and Count Binface are set to challenge Farage as candidates. Well, Chancellor Rachel Reeves formally accepted the resignation and said that if he wants to spend the summer arguing with a bin, I won't stop him. It is descending into a Farage farce. Ashok Kumar joins me now, Associate Professor of the Political Economy at Birkbeck University. Where are we? What's going on? The Commons have made the decision that should Binface win, he can't wear his bin. That would have been a serious conversation by somebody to make that decision.
Well, I just got the news here. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, this is a face-off between Nigel Farage and Binface.
Yeah.
And look, in seriousness, I think this was meant to be a way for Farage to show some muscle and show some populist like a kind of tactics, a kind of Trumpian tactics of saying we're going to take them on by taking it to the electorate. But this doesn't help Farage. Like, I think the entire, not only political establishment, but also the base of the Reform Party. You know, 50% of Reform supporters today came out and said they don't support what he's doing because he sort of makes a mockery of the entire thing. And this has nothing to do with what the decision of the Parliamentary Standards Commission decides. So whether you agree that he was wrong or not is sort of besides the point. The point is the tactic is so transparent and it's really not working in his favor, especially since this boycott's going on, and especially because they've had to make this decision about Count Binface.
Yeah, I mean, and Binface, when he was being interviewed this morning, I think he's a he anyway, it's hard to tell. I don't know what a female Binface.
He sounds like a he.
Yeah, he sounds like a he, but that could be prejudicial. I don't know.
Yes, it's true. You're right. You're right. Got to be safe.
Got to be safe these days. But Binface did say, look, if you vote for me, I'm going to save Clacton Council £300,000 because there won't have to be a second by-election if I win. Look, that is a fairly compelling argument by a bin.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly more than Farage seems to have been doing for Clacton. I mean, I have to say, I think that the question is, what is the political fallout from this? And I think, on a serious note, if you look at the way that reform, the direction of travel that reform is going, 2025, people expected, it was a foregone conclusion that reform was basically going to win by 2029. But then by 2026, they've fallen 5 points by the 2026 elections, the local elections, and they are losing every by-election, and they've now got Restore getting 6 to 7 to 8% in some places, eating into their base. And that's really what we're talking about. It's more than 6, 7, 8% because that's a base of people that go to talk to people at the pub or at a game or in their neighborhood. Those are people who are politically involved, shifting more to the store. And that's terrifying for someone like Nigel Farage. And then you have this corruption scandal that tops it all off. So he can see the direction of travel. And this is, in the American lingo, what we call a Hail Mary pass. You know, you're just launching something to restart the kind of campaign he expected, a few years ago. If anything, he's a campaigner more than he is a politician, or a legislator.
I would agree with that.
And so this is his place where he feels most comfortable. But I just don't think, this is not even wishful thinking. I think the evidence is very, very clear that it's not having the effect that we expect. And I also think at a larger point, it's very fair. The public really wants something different. You've had a uni party, and this is what Reform often criticizes. You have Reform from the right, and you have the Greens from the left, and their criticism of the uni party is very similar. You've had 40 years, 4 decades of effectively the same two parties who have one single goal, which is to serve a tiny group of extremely powerful people at the expense of everyone else. And in that time, what you've seen is real wages have fallen. Infrastructure is collapsing. 1 in 4 people in this country have less than £100 in their pocket. There's 15 million people in Britain living in poverty, 4 million children. And at the same time, you have 50 people owning more than half of the wealth in this country. And so while those things are happening, those aren't two things. One is connected to the other. And so people are going and saying, Reform saying, yes, let's blame this group of people or that group of people. But all of their policies, and it's becoming clearer and clearer, all of their policies is more privatization, more austerity, more war, more tax benefits for the rich. It's actually not, it's doing the same thing the Uni Party's done, but on steroids. And I think as this kind of corruption, you see the same billionaire class funding in the same corrupt way, the same people, and Reform has revealed that they weren't an anti-establishment party. In fact, what this reveals isn't just a story of corruption. It's a story of someone who's actually, in many respects, in the pocket of establishment figures. And so that's why it threatens Farage so much. It's not the legal procedures or that he might be kicked out, or it's not the media strategy. It's that it undermines the basic premise of his entire anti-establishment message. So that's why it's such an existential crisis for Reform.
I mean, I have to say that, of course, Farage denies there's been any form of wrongdoing and corruption. But there's an interesting poll that's just come out. I don't know if you've seen this. It was this was done before. A survey was carried out before 2 parliamentary sleaze investigations into Nigel Farage's failure to declare donations. OK, so this was done before that. It's the Electoral Calculus MRP poll, which is a big poll and a very serious poll. It said that Nigel Farage's party is down to 3rd place with predicted number of MPs well below last year's tally. A new poll, was a Burnham bounce, a new poll has put Labour into the lead, and then the Tories 2nd and Reform 3rd. Now, none of those parties, if there was an election tomorrow, would have a majority. It would be a hung parliament, right? But that's still a turn, isn't it, in where, as you were saying, where Reform was going. It was just always looked to be on the up. But this latest poll is placing them 3rd.
Well, look, I think there's a few things here, and I'm going to put a political science hat on for a minute. And it says, actually, with Burnham coming in and the hype, and he's had a very sympathetic ride, to be fair. We have to see what he's going to do. The Burnham bounce is a very real thing. People are excited about someone new. He's not wooden like Starmer. He comes across a little bit more personable. But in many respects, I'm waiting for him to tell us something different. It's like he's going with the same fiscal straitjacket. It's like, okay, well, there's no reason you need to do that, but he's going with that. He's got the same Blairite loser advisors around him. And he's like, these are the same Uni Party people that have gotten us in this mess in the first place. There's no real break in policy. He's got these vague promises of devolution. He's got these vague promises around, how we should care about the North or whatever. I'm like, cool, I'm down with that. I support that. What are you actually going to do? I mean, that's what people want. The problem with Blairism and someone like Burnham is he's never been an independent thinker. He voted for the war in Iraq. He voted 70 times against investigating. He voted for the war in Libya. He voted for every austerity measure. He comes from the right of the party. And it's like, well, so he doesn't think independently, right? He's not like sort of an independent thinker from the right or the left, right? So he's a very mainstream thinker, and now he has mainstream advisors around him, and all the trade unions aren't pushing him in any direction. So it's like, what is actually going to make him any different from Starmer? Is he going to? People don't need another we don't want Starmer with a little bit more personality, or we don't want Starmer with a northern accent. We need someone who's actually going to confront the big challenges of our time, which is really, the fact that we have this massive wealth disparity. I mean, personally, I think that's one of the big issues, and that's why people are crying out. That's why this country is having this economic depression in different parts. Some places are very wealthy, other places are entirely depressed. If he doesn't actually lay out an actual program around that, it can't just be vibes, Petrie. It can't be vibes.
Well, that's the thing, and it is vibes at the moment, isn't it? It's the northern vibe that he's bringing down, and talking about the pub culture and things like that. But actually, the big things that he wants to do are cripplingly expensive. Devolution is cripplingly expensive, and how's he going to pay for that? So yeah, we have a lot to hear, but I guess we'll know more about his direction when we see his cabinet picks, right?
Yeah, I think the cabinet picks are big. I think that more than the cabinet picks, I think it's also what actual policy program is he rolling out. It's unclear. I mean, he said some stuff about housing. I think that's good. People need, there's a housing crisis in this country. I think council housing is really one of the big things that needs to be done. But I think in terms of the other policies, unless he goes big, the Burnham bounce is going to deflate very quickly. And when that happens, you're going to see people in cities shift back towards the Greens. The Greens got second in the last election. They got 18%, 7 points over 2025. And they're going to go to reform in more rural areas in the red wall. And you're going to see that shift, that break happen. You're going to see Labour fall again. Because it's more the same. Charisma has a very short shelf life. It's not the 90s anymore. In the 90s, you can have a Blair, you can have a Bush, or you can have a Clinton, and people can ride high on that because the economy was booming. Whereas we're one of the slowest growth economies in the G20. That charisma will turn sour very quickly.
Oh yeah, he hasn't got long. I mean, I think that after the first budget, it'll tell us as well about him in October. Looking at this summer though, and we're about to enter what is traditionally called the silly season, where we're scrabbling around for stories because, of course, politics is on a hiatus. Not this summer. There's going to be all sorts of stuff going on with Count Binface and Nigel Farage. There's also Andy Burnham, who will be, it looks like Al Khan's has now said he's not going to challenge Andy Burnham, that he will be our Prime Minister by the 20th. He'll be agreed to be Prime Minister on the 17th. That falls on a Friday. And then by the 20th, the Monday, he will be the British Prime Minister. Now, this is extraordinary because nobody voted anywhere near him. He wasn't even an MP. And this man is now running the country, only in Britain, right?
Well, look, I mean, you hit it on the head. Like, at one point, you'll have Count Binface. That'll be relentlessly rolled out in the press. This is now an albatross on the neck of reform, frankly. Yeah. And they've messed this up really badly. Then you've got Andy Burnham. I mean, until 2021 and the Labour Party conference changes, which the right of the party, people like Wes Streeting and others push for these reforms, that meant the Parliamentary Labour Party, the threshold had to be much higher because they wanted to prevent another Jeremy Corbyn from coming in. The problem now is that none of these people, I mean, Wes Streeting couldn't get enough support to get on nomination. So, there's no one from the left really to challenge Burnham, and there's no one from the right to really challenge him because they can't get the sufficient number of signatures and nominations. So what that means is you basically have an anointment. And in many respects, Starmer was an anointment. He had less votes than Corbyn did in 2017 and 2019, in fact. So it was a victory built on sand. And that's why he was so, for a number of reasons, but it was such a mirage. We said, oh, he won with such a victory. But as soon as he came in, he started, not doing anything or doing things in the wrong direction. And it collapsed because it was a victory built on sand. Here, we don't even have that. We don't even have the vestige of a sandcastle. We have... we have someone who's basically come in unchallenged, anointed into this position. And so the challenge for him will even be greater because he doesn't have the mandate. And so he needs to actually, he has to have the transformative policies, but he doesn't have a mandate for transformative policies. Yeah. So this is the contradiction. If he doesn't make those transformative changes, his popularity, whatever this is, the popularity of the bounce, is going to deflate immediately. But also, if he does the big policies without a mandate, he'll be challenged on the legitimacy of those policies as well.
Yeah, the sand will turn to quicksand.
Yes, indeed.
Very quickly.
Indeed.
Ashok, it's such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Let's do it again soon. Ashok Kumar there, Associate Professor of Political Economy at Birkbeck University. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you, and a quick reminder that of course Vincent Moss will be joining us at the top of the hour, a former political editor. He's going to be here to go through the newspapers I bet you Binface, I haven't seen the front pages yet, but I bet Binface is all over the front pages. He's going to become something of a national hero, I think. I mean, look, the reason I think that everybody keeps saying, Farage is going to win. He had 46% of the votes, blah, blah, blah. But that means that 54% of the votes didn't vote for him. So if all of those people vote for Binface, it could be a shock result. And look, we can't be trusted. The British public, we've got a really warped sense of humour. And what was it we came up with when a boat was being named? Boaty McBoatface. So whether we can be trusted or not with a by-election, I'm not so sure. I think there is a good chance that Binface could win. And as for Lawrence Fox, I mean, he's more right than Farage, so he might take some votes off Farage. I mean, who knows? But at least I won't have to read out a really long list every time somebody mentions the by-election, which is what we normally have to do. There may be a couple of other independents, but I doubt it. I think that a lot of people just want to sit back and get the popcorn out and see exactly what's going to happen with Binface. Can you? I mean, look. It tickles me. It's just, I know it shouldn't, because politics is serious business, and they should stop mucking around and actually get on with doing the work that we pay them to do. But I keep coming back to Boaty McBoatface and just seeing that people, just for devilment, might just vote for Binface. And I think he normally gets about 50, 100 votes in every by-election, but I'm thinking it's going to be more than that this time. So that is going to be completely fascinating. Coming up at midnight, we're going to be talking about speeding and why it is we are a speeding culture. But also, I do want to talk to you about the basics of driving. And driving used to be a joy. When I first got my car, which, by the way, was the same colour as my top here, bright sort of pea green Mini, with a rotted hole on the footplate. You could see the road when I was driving along. It was just such fun to go out and drive, just to get in the car and go somewhere. The independence that gave me, the joy that it gave me, there was none of this sort of congestion charges or cameras everywhere. I mean, I couldn't speed in that thing. It would probably reach 40 at going downhill. But it was a joy. It was fun. But it isn't fun anymore, is it? and I still got a Mini, not the same Mini, and I love the Mini. I love it. And I enjoy driving it when I get a chance to drive it. But more often than not, I come home thinking, well, I wonder if I've triggered some fine or other. I wonder if it's just now I'm going to get charged 150 quid for doing something I didn't even know was illegal. You know, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't do it deliberately. Parking as well, that is an absolute nightmare in this country, especially around my neck of the woods in London. It is a joke. It's an absolute joke. But the worst is these low traffic neighbourhoods. I don't know if you have any in your towns and cities. I don't know if they are outside of London. But they are an absolute nightmare. A tiny little sign on a lamppost that you've driven down that road 1,000 times, right? You don't bother looking because you've driven down that road 1,000 times, and then this one time you do it, and in the post you get a photograph of your car and a fine for doing it. So I don't know. I think they have kicked the backside out of the enjoyment of driving, and it should be something that we love doing. But speeding not. An RAC investigation has revealed a persistent UK speeding culture, with over 30,000 drivers caught exceeding 30 miles an hour in a 20 mile an hour zone, and 275,000 topping 40 miles an hour in a 30 mile an hour zone. Shocking extreme cases include 89 miles an hour in a 20 mile an hour limit, and 106 miles per hour overall on the M6, which would be a 70 miles per hour. Despite widespread 20 mile an hour rollouts to reduce fatalities, severe speeding continues. So why are people speeding like this, and why do they constantly and continuously break the rules? Well, joining me now is Steve Berry, motoring journalist and broadcaster, used to driving quite fast himself on programmes like Top Gear. What was the fastest you got to, Steve?
On a bike or in a car?
Oh, both. Give me the bike first.
208.
What?
Blown your mind, that. Blown your mind, that, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. 208.
Yep. And that was a road legal motorcycle on sale to the general public in the UK 25 years ago.
Wow.
Car, 221 miles an hour. People are going to say, liar. In fact, they're going to use strong words. And I'm going to say, look it up. Callaway Corvette Sledgehammer Le Mans specification, 221 miles an hour. On the road in the UK, no, I wasn't driving.
That's amazing.
And I'm still here. Yeah. I've been pulled over in Germany for only doing 155 on the fast lane on a BMW motorcycle. The cops pulled me over.
Were you slowing down the traffic?
Yeah, they gave me a bit of a lecture saying, look, mate, you can't just sit in the... I didn't know if this bike was restricted. I knew it could potentially go faster, so I thought, I wonder if it's restricted to 155 for the UK market. Just outside Munich, got it on the Autobahn, got it up to 155. The next thing I heard was sirens and flashing lights, and I thought, oh no! And then I thought, hold on a minute, I'm in Germany, why are they pulling me over? And they gave me a lecture saying, look, mate, you can't just sit in the fast lane at 155. And then he had to shut up because an Audi in a 911, right up his chuff, went past at a speed that I estimate to be about 180, 185. And people are doing that in Germany right now. And guess what they're not doing? They're not exploding. They're not being reduced to atoms. If you look at the statistics for Germany and the UK for road traffic accidents, they're very similar.
Yeah, so I lived in Germany for a few years, and the Autobahn was drive to the road conditions, wasn't it? It was just whatever the road conditions are. And you do find that German, if it is foggy or, you know, there's none of that. We've got, I find on British motorways, if it says 70, somebody will do 70 in the fog, right? But in Germany, they don't. They tend to drive to the road conditions because they're trusted with making that decision.
70.
70. Is that too slow? Is it too slow?
Yes, way too slow. My main gig these days is to represent one of the biggest classic car auction houses in the UK. And so today, I've been doing a preview video for our next sale, which is a load of old cars from the 1920s up to like the 1980s. Included in that sale was a V12 E-Type, which is now over 50 years old. I've done 155 miles an hour in a V12 E-Type, and it didn't explode, and I'm not dead. Nobody was harmed by that. But that car is now 50 years old.
Yeah.
Why is our speed limit not increased? And I'll tell you why. I then drove home with a colleague in a brand new Volvo. He barely touched the controls. The car just drove itself back from the southeast of England back to Manchester. He barely had to touch the controls. And do you know what? There was a problem along the way where the traffic suddenly stopped. The car hit the brakes before he did. And yet, the massive advances in technology and in safety for both drivers, passengers, pedestrians, motorcyclists like me, bicyclists like me, that has never been reflected. In my driving lifetime, which is now 44 years, I've never seen speed limits go up. All I've seen them do is come down. And so all the massive efforts at a cost of billions of dollars, euros, yen, whatever you want to call them, that have been made by the motor manufacturers.
Yeah, all of those advances, pointless.
None of it's been recognised. It's been like the stopping figures in the highway code are a work of fiction that makes the work of J.K. Rowling look like fact.
Do you think they've kicked the joy out of driving? That we no longer...
You know why? I'll tell you for why. Because they want us to just be driven around by cars. But here's the interesting thing about speeding. We were talking about this today. I go out on the road, and I've talked about the speeds that I've done. I'm not boasting, but I've been busted for 138 or 155. Right. And I got a ban. Quite rightly, probably, because it's massively in excess of the speed limit. It was a very long time ago. I actually served a long ban while I was a Top Gear presenter, but that's another story. Anyway, so we were talking about this today. Why is it only the user that is responsible, held criminally responsible or responsible of a court of law? Why isn't the provider of the object, of the vehicle, of the device? I'll give you an example. If you went to a sports shop today and said, can I buy a machine gun? Do you know what they'd say? No, you can have an air rifle. That's what you can actually own in the UK, an air rifle. You can't have a machine gun because decided that is too powerful and dangerous.
You're going to have to get to the point because I'm running out of time.
This is my point. Why aren't the manufacturers of cars that can do the fastest car on sale, get this, in the UK, can do 0 to 60 in slightly under 2 seconds?
Wow.
Why are they selling that to the public?
Well, that's a good question. That is a really good question because you can't drive it at that, can you? Steve Berry, thank you. Brilliant chat. Motoring journalist and broadcaster. Stay where we are. Papers next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and coming up at midnight I want to talk to you about driving, because there's a new report out from the RAC talking about us being a culture of speeders. We're just talking to Steve Berry there and him saying the speeds that he's going to, and he's right, you know, these vehicles that we drive now are capable of incredible speeds and they are much safer. So do you think that the speed limits actually is, apart from lowering them all the time, which is what we're doing, should we not raise them? Not in towns and cities, I get that, I understand that completely, but certainly on motorways, 70 miles an hour does, for the cars that we all drive now, does feel like it's a bit slow. And if you did drive in Germany, you'd know that you drive to the road conditions. So you can be pulled over by the police if you are driving what they would term as recklessly, like if you were driving 150 in fog, for example, you would be done for that. But if you, and I noticed in Germany that everybody drives to the road conditions. If it's heavily raining, everybody slows down. You don't even get the odd one person driving stupidly, because they will be pulled over for that. They will be fined for that. And in Germany, you'll find as a percentage of your salary. So the bigger the car, the richer you are, the higher the fine you pay. So they tend to behave themselves or drive to the road conditions. In this country, the last time I drove in fog, I was driving incredibly slowly. You couldn't see in front of you, and people were going past me at what must have been 70 miles an hour on the motorway. So I did think, well, there's a difference there. Oh, it's 70. I'm allowed to do 70, and not even thinking about the road conditions. So there's that, and there's also what I think is the worst thing that's happened for us, is that they've kicked the joy out of driving. It used to be a nice thing to do. It used to be enjoyable, that you would get in your car and have a little potter about. Maybe you think, oh, I'll go, and if I wanted to go to Richmond and take the dogs to Richmond, I'd get in the car and drive to Richmond and then stop there and have a, But it's almost not worth it now, because it's so unpleasant to drive. They've made sure that it is horrible, unpleasant. There's nowhere to park. You can't park when you get there. You're getting caught out for doing things that you never even thought were illegal or were finable. And on it goes and on it goes and on it goes. It's become expensive. It's become painful. And that is deliberate, right? They want it to be less fun. They want us to not enjoy it very much. But I want to know if it's really kicked the joy out of it for you as well. And have you ever been done for speeding? I have not. And have you ever had to do a speed awareness course? Because I know a couple of people who've had to do those, and they said they were quite good, actually. But listen, give me a call on this, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word TALK and your message to 87222. With me in the studio to discuss this and the stories of the day is Vincent Moss, former political editor. Hello.
Hi, Petrie.
Do you drive?
I do drive.
Do you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it, but rather like you, it's become an absolute obstacle course in terms of so many roads that used to be safe to drive along. They've introduced new restrictions where I live in South London.
And they're tiny little signs.
Tiny little signs that weren't there before. No right turn, you turn right, it's an £80 fine. Guess what? I've had 2 recent speeding fines. Guess what horrendous speeds I was caught at? 24 miles an hour both times in a 20. And I have a very old car that doesn't have a digital readout. It has a dial. So in my defence, it's quite hard to know the difference between 22, 23 and 24.
Yeah, it is.
And I've had 2 tickets at 24 miles an hour.
Does that mean you're going to have to go on a speed awareness course?
I have done a speed awareness course, and they are quite useful. It tells you a few things you don't know about, depending on the street lamps on the side of the road. You can tell whether it's a 60 or a 70-mile-an-hour zone. And it's quite a long time. I think it's about an hour or 90 minutes. Well, my only tip on speed awareness courses is if you're ever sent on one, Google the cheapest ones, because they're held all over the country online, and different areas have different prices, and they vary by about £20 or £30 each. I think they're about £100 now. So Google them before you sign up to one, because they're cheaper depending on where you are.
And you can do it online?
You can do it online, you can do it on a Zoom call.
You don't have to turn up?
You don't have to turn up anymore since COVID, I think. And I think, for example, I did my speed awareness course, I think it was in Cleveland. So effectively, even though I live in London, I did a speed awareness course with a bunch of people from the northeast, and it saved me about £20 or £30. So it's quite interesting. It's a nice bunch of people. The bloke who does it is quite humorous. It's a bit boring because you're not allowed to look at your phone, you're not allowed to do anything funny, you're not allowed to read a book. You've got to look as though you're concentrating. I think it was about £100.
£100. Yeah, because they're making millions out of these speed awareness courses, and that they were set up, weren't they, by ex-police officers, I think I'm right in saying, and they've just become millionaires from these speed awareness courses. But it's worth doing them, I guess, because you don't get points on your licence. That's the thing.
I think the first time you get a fine, usually they say you can avoid the points by taking the speed awareness course. So, of course, everybody takes the speed awareness course because they want to avoid the fine. Because, of course, you only need 2 or 3. We get 3, and then you're on 9 points, and then you're thinking, well, if I get one more, you're in ban territory.
Yeah.
So if you go up and down the same road and get a fine twice in the same day, and you probably don't know until a couple of weeks later, you've suddenly got yourself perilously close to a ban for not going that fast. So I do get it when people are doing 120 in the rain on a motorway in the dark. Dangerous. I'd argue that going on a dead straight road at 24 miles an hour in the middle of the day in central London is not that fast, but it's all about revenue generation, as you said, trying to force people off the road, or as they would say, change behaviour. Can't always do that, though. If you're old, disabled, there are no buses, there are no other ways of getting around, what are you going to do?
But also, what's wrong with having something we enjoy? I mean, that's the other thing. It should be a choice that is made, and not just reserved for the rich, and not just reserved for the people who can afford all these fines or have got a parking space. This should be a question of choice, not of being, you know, beaten out of our vehicles. I mean, it used to be the great. When I got my first car, as I said, it was a Mini, this kind of Mini, pea green Mini, with a rotted floor. God, the independence, just the freedom, the joy of being able to get. I think it cost me 50 quid, this car, and I wish I still had it actually, because it would be a classic worth a fortune. But I think it was about 50 quid, and it was just the most precious thing in my world. It was like the greatest thing I'd ever done, was that independence and freedom and ability just to go and see somebody, get in the car, go down to London. You know, it was amazing.
Well, I think now I defy anybody to get across a major city like Bristol or Oxford or London without suddenly you come across a sign that says congestion charge or buses only. Or my particular favourite on roads where there aren't a school is it's a school street for about 90 minutes a day in the morning and the afternoon. And if you turn down one of those streets, that's another fine. Fine when there are schools. We should all drive carefully outside schools, but they've been introduced relatively recently. The signage is usually dreadful. It's only for a short period of the day, and sometimes they're even on roads where there's not even a school.
Yeah, it backs onto a school. Yeah, there's one right next to me, actually, and a friend of mine who lives in the next street to it, and she's had to put a notice on her door as she goes out of the door to say, remember, don't drive past this school, Wendell School. And it's right next to the park where I take the boys, and you see people drive down it all the time, and I'm like, oh, you know, you're going to get done for that.
And the fines are quite big now, because I think they're about £80.
And the signage, as you're right, is absolutely
People
appalling.
can't afford £80. You know, that's a huge difference to other people's weekly budgets.
It's massive. And it's the same with parking, isn't it? And parking fines or parking costs. I have to go to a medical appointment in town. So first of all, I have to pay the £18 congestion, because if I got a cab to and from, it's 60, 70 quid. It's just crazy, right? So, but to park there, I think it's £4 for half an hour as well. And you never know how long the appointment's going to go for. Sometimes I'm in and out in 10 minutes, and other times I'll be waiting for 40 minutes. So I'm constantly paying more than I need to and leaving early, or not paying enough and having to scramble to pay more. So that just makes it miserable.
It's a challenge. All of it. My favourite on the parking thing at the moment is there are some boroughs where you pay to activate the parking through an app, and then it only stops it if you remember to tap out, as it were. Otherwise, it charges you for the full period.
No.
So I was near Battersea Park the other day, and I think it says it charges you for 4 hours unless you hit the stop button on the app. And if you forget for some reason to hit the stop button, you'll get charged for the whole period. So if you're busy or doing something...
Why do that? Why do that?
Raise more money.
Yeah, raise more money. And I also object now to the parking machines where you have to put in your car registration number, and that gets printed onto a ticket if there is a ticket, because you can't hand that on to anybody else. It used to be, you know, if I paid too much for parking and I had an hour left, I'd say to somebody who was just looking at me, do you need an hour? And they go, oh God, thank you so much. And you could pass that on. Now, people go, that's fraud, but it's still paid for. It's not like anybody's stealing anything. I could choose to sit there in my car for an hour, drinking or you know, a coffee or doing some knitting if I so chose. But I vacated that spot and somebody else got the ticket. But you used to be able to do that, and that was a nice thing.
Exactly. And the other thing they do now is all the parking wardens near me, you used to be able to look up and down the street, I'm only here for a couple of minutes, I think I can just nip into this shop and nip out. Now they all have mopeds and they whiz around on mopeds. So if you think you're safe for a couple of minutes, you might not be, because they might not be in vision, but they can come round the corner, whiz into your street and give you a ticket. So it's a real gymnastic sort of assault course, if you like, to try and a daily battle to be able to get through your part of the city or town or wherever it is outside London. Many other cities just as bad. To get away without a fine or a ticket is a miracle sometimes.
You know, and I was saying earlier on that I feel so sorry for professional drivers, because they must just get hit all the time, especially with those low traffic neighbourhood streets now that just pop up. There's no warning, there's nothing. The tiny little sign. And if you're driving, you're already looking at your speedometer to make sure you're not going over 20. You're already looking for kids that might run across the road. You're looking for pedestrians who are looking at their phones. You're already making sure that there isn't a bus that's about to mow you down. And you've got to look for these tiny little signs on roads that you've driven down 100 times before and never been fined before.
Exactly.
So they catch you out.
And all these electricians, plumbers, decorators who have to pay either a huge amount of money to... They might only be doing a job that takes 40 minutes or something, but they'll have to probably, the householder or they will have to provide a day permit. So if you're just doing a boiler service, it might only take you half an hour, 40 minutes, but you'll have to pay, in my area, £15 for a parking permit.
It is absolutely wrong, isn't it? But I just find now, if I do get any workmen or women coming to my place, I just have to pay their parking.
Yep.
So that's on top of whatever it is. And the parking around me is hellishly expensive. I don't know why. It's Hammersmith and Fulham, but it is miles away from a tube station. But it's...
I think they all just use it to fill the gaps. They say they're getting less money from central government, so they just use parking and fines and that sort of revenue to fill the shortfalls in other parts of their budgets.
It's disgusting.
It is.
It really is. They're cash cow. We're cash cows for them. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. Do give me a call. We have a good old moan about what it's like to have a car. It's not the fun, it's not the joy that it used to be. And do you feel like actually sort of working class people are being pushed out of vehicles now, are being pushed out of cars? It will become, like it was at the beginning, the preserve of the very, very wealthy. They're the only ones that will be able to afford to drive in the next few years, and the rest of us will just have to have a pogo stick or something, I don't know. Quick break. Vincent, I'll be back in just a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you, and with me is Vincent Moss, a former political editor. The Times, Vincent, let's kick off with that. Farage faces new questions over timing of Tycoon's £5 million gift. So if he hoped that this stunt was going to distract from this inquiry, it appears not to have worked.
No, it's not. I mean, the reason he quit as an MP and called the by-election is he thought he could get ahead of the story about his donations and the parliamentary investigation to him by holding a by-election and saying, let the people decide. The establishment are out to get me, which is always his core narrative. Let's have a vote. Let's see what the public think. He's got an 8,000 majority. He thinks he would get home again in a by-election. But, of course, the inquiry won't go away because even if he does win the by-election...
They're not the people who have to decide. It's the Parliamentary Standards Commission.
Absolutely. So the inquiry could be restarted even if he's successfully elected. And he could then say, well, look, the people backed me and they knew all of this, but the Parliamentary Standards Commission will still potentially recontinue the inquiry. So the story won't go away, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in this by-election. It looks like it could be as early as August the 8th. The only person who said he'll stand so far after the major parties have withdrawn and said it's a stunt is, of course, Count Binface.
Yeah.
Who could be an MP at this rate.
I mean, he actually could. I mean, everybody, everybody laughed at me when I said Starmer wouldn't see out the 4 years, right? And I said that from day one, not close to what's happening now. And I'm saying that it is entirely possible that Binface could win this. And forget, no, it's going to be Farage. But look, as we were saying in the break, 54% of people didn't vote for Nigel Farage, 46 did. But also, like I said, Boaty McBoatface, right? We have a warped sense of humour in this country. And since a lot of people are not going to be taking this by-election incredibly seriously, I can see the British sense of humour coming out and voting for Binface.
I can see it too. So all those years he's been in drafty town halls on a Thursday night at midnight, getting no money, and he now could hit the jackpot of 100 grand a year.
Yeah.
MP salary.
He could get whoever it is, we don't know. I mean, it could be several people. So we don't know who, but I think Binface is being interviewed across the spectrum. I won't see where he is at the moment because people might switch off and go and have a look at it.
It does make you wonder who it is, though, I think it's a he, because unless his voice is being modified, it sounds like a man. But wouldn't you be just so tempted to pull the bin off his face just to find out who it is?
I think the fun of it is not knowing,
It's true.
I mean, it could be anyone. I think that I was saying this yesterday, that it seemed like a very weird decision, perhaps born out of anger from Nigel Farage, to do this. And Reform are now saying, well, we did foresee this. I'm not sure they did.
I'm not sure they did. There has been a precedent where I think it was David Davis who was going to stand, and and other people pulled back. But you would have thought they would have war-gamed this and thought, OK, if all the main candidates stand, I won last time, I'm pretty popular, Farage would think I'll win again. But they must have surely thought, or perhaps they didn't, the other candidates might pull out, and what would happen then? He looks at, I think these by-elections costed varies 200 grand, 300 grand, an awful lot of taxpayers' money. And of course, one of the big reform things is we're trying to cut down on public waste, and there he is creating unnecessary spending. So very interesting to see how it plays out. It looks as though at the moment there'll only be the two candidates, Nigel Farage and Binface. And as you say, with people's sense of humour, looking for summer fun, the idea of being able to vote and send a effective sort of comedy MP is quite hard to resist.
But also, even if Farage does win, he's not winning against the establishment, because Binface is anti-establishment. I mean, I was trying to explain to Martina, my makeup artist today. She said, "Oh, who is this bin face. And I said, well, he's actually quite important to British democracy because he stands as an anti-establishment figure. He's always been a bit of a joke, like the monster raving loony party. But they stand there as a point of principle that this is a democracy and that you can, you know, anybody is allowed to stand, and that we can, you know, that's quite an important part of our, of sometimes the silliness of the British system, but it is nonetheless important. And I think that, you know, like you said, the idea that Farage now is going to face front page after front page after front page of, you know, bin face and versus Farage. I mean, it is just embarrassing. And when it's all over and they're both standing on the stage waiting for the returning officer, he's standing there with a bin. I mean, the images are awful for reform. Even if he wins, what has he won? He's not won anything.
And he hasn't nailed the story that pushed him to this,
he hasn't,
which is the story about the donations from the sort of crypto billionaire in Thailand, Christopher Harborne, and various other financial alleged improprieties, which of course he would deny. He does say he's done nothing wrong. All of that doesn't go away. The one thing I do wonder, though, is a bit like all those years ago when the former BBC journalist Martin Bell, in his white suit, stood as an anti-sleaze candidate. Will there be somebody who emerges from the shadows and stands as a kind of
well, it could be Lawrence Fox, but he'll just take votes from Farage because they're both on the right of politics. So apparently Lawrence Fox is considering standing. But yesterday we were saying that what's that mathematician chick called? Guys, remind me who? Carol Vorderman. That she was going to stand as well as an independent. So there might be a couple of independents, but I don't think so. I think that even the independents will look at this and go, let's just see what happens.
Exactly. The one other name I heard was the sort of consumer champion, Martin Lewis.
Martin Lewis.
But I think he said he's not going to stand, so...
Yeah.
But it's... Or a famous sports personality, something like that.
So possibly, but to what end? I mean, I think that the end result, if you wanted to challenge Nigel Farage, then you would not stand.
Yes.
That would be my advice. Somebody said, well, I want to show Nigel Farage. I'd say, well, don't stand then, because this is going to be an embarrassment. And it was interesting today, Vincent, that the day after he announces basically a by-election, he's not doing the media rounds. Thingy Youssef was doing them. Zia Youssef was doing them. He's not going to be able to avoid doing interviews. And nobody's going to be asking him about Clacton.
Exactly.
Everybody is going to be asking him. And now they're suggesting that that Farage said he got this money at this point, but he didn't. He got it at a different point. There'll be more coming out.
And his story keeps changing. Initially, he said it was for his lifelong security. Then it was something else. There are questions about his portfolio of up to 5 to 6 houses.
Yeah.
There's also questions from another friend of his called Posh George Cottrell, and money coming in from that area. So he's got a lot of questions to answer. They aren't going to go away.
They're not going to go away.
The idea of a bit of summer fun and voting for Count Binface, very, very tempting. I think it wouldn't be a hard decision for me if I was living in Clacton, where I'd put my vote.
It would not be a hard decision for me either, just for the minxiness of it.
For the fun.
Just for the fun. And Lord knows we don't get enough of that, do we? Like I said, Boaty McBoatface, that's all I'm going to say. We all know what I mean by that. The other stories on here, Burnham, I'll aim defence spending at British firms. Now, we know that Andy Burnham, who is now almost definitely Prime Minister on the 20th of this month, he's pledged to rebuild the country's hard power by ensuring billions of pounds of additional defence spending is focused on the UK rather than being given to American or European companies. There are major issues with that, with defence contracts, because they are usually much longer standing than he can make this decision about. And also, if we suddenly switch from, let's say, an American-built machine to a British-built machine, do they speak to each other? Do they speak the same language? Can they work in unison together? And often the answer to that is no. So it's all very well to suggest this, and I applaud that idea, providing it doesn't cost us way more to buy British. But you've got issues with compatibility.
Well, not only that, you've also got issues about the terrible record of the MOD in particular on procurement. Now, is probably a better use of public funds to buy an off-the-shelf product potentially from America than it is to run a procurement programme in the UK that doesn't work. And there are brilliant defence companies in the UK, like Rolls-Royce and others, but that's not the problem. The problem is in the management of the procurement of the project.
They've bought vehicles that make soldiers sick. They've bought guns that don't work. I mean, it's been a disaster.
It is. I mean, what Burnham is saying makes sense and will appeal to many people.
Yeah.
Of course, it would be great in a perfect world that all defence spending and all other state spending was targeted at British firms. The real challenge she's going to face is living up to this UK pledge to spend 3.5% of GDP on defence by 2035. Where at the moment we're only on about 2.56%. That's a big uplift, and he's going to face all the other spending commitment and spending challenges that the current regime under Keir Starmer have had to face and struggle to meet.
Yeah, I wonder if it's you know, as Ashok Kumar was saying to me earlier, you can't just get by on vibes.
Absolutely.
Well,
you can for a bit, but not very long.
Not for long. And also, of course, the news yesterday that he's going to have to raise 120 billion in extra taxes to avoid a crisis, and everybody's sort of terrified of that now.
Exactly.
Let's have a look at this. I'm not going to sniff chocolate. I'm going to eat it. But this is a story saying sniffing chocolate. I had to read it a couple of times because I thought I might be misreading it. Sweetens up gym results. It's not a food typically associated with fitness gains, but according to scientists, sniffing a bar of chocolate may improve athletic performance in the gym as long as you don't eat it afterwards.
Well, apparently it seems to be, you see a big increase in repetitions, and it's a fascinating psychobiological outcome. And it's a study here by the University of Malaya in Kuala Lumpur found that smelling cocoa tricks the system into feeling full while boosting strength and stamina. Well, the trouble is, I'm not even going to be able to try that because the moment I start sniffing chocolate, I'm going to start eating it.
It's too close to your mouth, your nose, isn't it? Yeah. Straight in. That's it, gone. I could probably sniff the chocolate up my nose, to be fair. I love chocolate. But I mean, I have seen people on social media who sniff like a donut or something and then eat some broccoli and then sniff the donut and then eat the broccoli, and that's apparently supposed to trick... makes no sense. Again, I would just eat the donut.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's all that's going to happen. But sniff a chocolate bar before you do any working out, but don't eat it afterwards.
And apparently you'll do more repetitions in the gym. Actually, maybe just don't go to the gym and just stay home and eat the chocolate.
Stay at home, eat the chocolate. Do you put your chocolate in the fridge?
I do now. We've got to, haven't you? It just goes gooey. Everything has to go virtually in the fridge at the moment. All the chocolate is in the fridge, and there's quite a lot
But
of
it's
it in there.
always in the fridge. For me, it's always got to be in the fridge. No, it's not happening. Should we take a break? Not a Kit Kat. We'll just take a break.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Vincent and I are having a very deep conversation now about our favourite chocolate bars, and I was just saying that a Mars ice cream is lovely. How does the toffee not freeze? I don't understand. It's witchcraft. It's amazing. Anyway, back to the papers. Rochdale rapists will be deported. Shabana Mahmood is set to change the law so that the Pakistani-born ringleader of the Rochdale grooming gang can be deported. On Monday, the Home Secretary is expected to explain how the government will amend the 1971 Immigration Act, which prevents Shabir Ahmed from being removed from Britain. I thought there was another reason he couldn't be removed from Britain, and that is he is stateless. He has had his British citizenship revoked, and he himself revoked his Pakistani citizenship. So she's going to have to get over a second hurdle.
Very much so, and it sounds complicated, sounds like it might take a long time, even if it has the support of opposition parties, which it probably will do. Just crazy that people who commit these serious crimes can't deport them once they have served their sentence. But according to the Telegraph, the Home Secretary says that officials have found a way to close the loophole without jeopardising the right to remain of other Commonwealth citizens, including the Windrush migrants from the Caribbean. So it sounds like something that's going to take up parliamentary time, but probably worth doing at the end of the day because we can get rid of vile characters like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary. Pakistan has refused to take Ahmed and two other freed ringleaders from the Rochdale, why are they even freed, Rochdale grooming gang back, because they have renounced their Pakistani citizenship. So they can do that themselves. All three have also been stripped of their British citizenship because of their crimes. Britain disputes that Ahmed renounced his citizenship decades ago, as the Pakistanis claim, pointing to evidence that he did not go through the full process. But it is illegal for us to render these perverts stateless. So I don't know how she's going to get around that unless the Pakistanis agree. I thought there was some talk about them wanting dissidents freed as a sort of payoff.
So there may be a deal to be done, but there's a senior Pakistani government official who's not named in the Telegraph saying these demands to take him back are being made about somebody who is now about 75 and has spent more than 60 years in your country. How is he our national? So they're basically saying he's been there most of the time, you own it. But of course that's not what most people seem to feel, including the government. So no. I suspect it'll be a very protracted process.
Yeah, it really will be. The mail case that was settled yesterday, Prince Harry saying this was a whitewash, but the Duke of Sussex and his fellow claimants tried to settle their failed £50 million privacy claim against the publisher Daily Mail weeks before the trial began.
Yeah, I think it started to emerge that their case against the Mail wasn't very strong, and they obviously looked to try and settle it.
So the advice was just get out of this.
Yeah, and the Mail obviously realised they had a strong case and didn't, and Harry could be left, you know, with quite a large bill, and he's obviously very unhappy because he'd had successes against other newspaper groups, and he'd rather hoped to have a sort of the icing on the cake would have been this win over this claims that they'd used illegal means, which they of course denied to find information about him, but he lost that case.
Not only denied, but the judge was fairly emphatic about it, wasn't he? He just said, look, the evidence just isn't there. There's no evidence.
That's right.
It's patchy. It's inconsistent. It doesn't tie up. It's just not there. And he actually berated them for bringing this case.
That's right. I think one of the key witnesses they were relying on changed his story. Private investigator, and a lot of the claims that stories that were got through illicit means there was no tangible evidence to back it up, and the judge was rather annoyed about that and made it clear in the summing up of
really annoyed
of the
about it, yeah, and just saying this was an absolute mess. The other story, because you're a big fan, aren't you, of
big
Wimbledon?
tennis fan, yeah.
Are you watching this Arthur Ferry I've never heard of him. Britain's Arthur Ferry will play for a place in the Wimbledon final. So he was this wild card. I don't know where he's come from.
Literally unknown. He was about 114th in the world, and he was outside the top 200 until very recently. It was a wild card, which basically means you're not good enough to get into Wimbledon on first shout. You get invited in. He probably got invited in because he's a Brit, and we obviously want Brits at Wimbledon. But to get through to the semi-finals
so he didn't have to qualify.
as a wild card...
He didn't have to qualify.
No, he was just you get a wild card to come in, and you're invited to enter. And he is the only, I think, the first wild card in the semi-final since Goran Ivanovic in 2001.
Is he good? I mean, he must be good.
He's very, very good, and he played really, really well in the last couple of games. He had a straight sets victory over the number 9 seed, who's an Italian called Flavio Cabelli, and he beat him. So he's beaten the number 9 seed. So he's going to be up against potentially the only people left in it, sort of Djokovic and Sinner and people like that, the best in the world, really. And he's in the last 4. We'll all be rooting for him. And if this run continues, he's only got one match away from being in the final, which would be incredible.
I mean, that's his career made, right?
Already it's his career made.
So will this reseed him?
Yes, he'll automatically be the UK #1 seed, not least because a lot of our best players like Jack Draper's been injured, Andy Murray obviously is no longer on the scene. Yeah. So he is, just when we looked as though we were running out of decent tennis players, looks as though we may have just found one. So very good news, and keeps the British interest going in Wimbledon.
It's a really good British story as well, isn't it?
It is.
Boy done good type story. We like those. We like those stories. We like those stories. Ruth Ellis has been pardoned. She was the last woman to be put to death by the state. She's now had a conditional pardon. I saw that earlier on. It's just at the top there. Somebody saying Ruth Ellis doesn't deserve a pardon, but she has got one. The Daily Mail, a Farage bin-face by-election is deadly serious. I mean, it's hard to say that with a straight face, isn't it?
It is, and the fact they've had to write that tells you it's actually not deadly serious. And the intro is Nigel Farage last night insisted he's fighting a real election. He spoke out after the by-election gamble left him facing off against a man dressed as a bin, which really sort of sums it up. And voters, it says in the Mail, face the prospect of a farcical ballot featuring none of the main rivals after they all refused to fight it. And Mr Farage accuses mainstream opponents of cowardice. Now the joke candidate Cam Bin-Face is his chief rival. A chief rival who will get a lot of airtime. What do you think? Do you think he'll win? I think there's a chance he might win. There's a really good chance that Bin-Face will win. I really do. I just think that I think we're in that sort of mood in this country. Well, maybe we should start looking into Count Bin-Face's political donations and... well, he's already said, hasn't he, that a vote for Bin-Face could potentially save Clacton Council £300,000 because if he wins, there won't be a second by-election. But what are his policies? What does he think about the Middle East? His policies are brilliant. The 99p cone is to be put back to 99p. Very good, like that one. Yeah, like that one. Baked goods shouldn't cost more than £1, like croissants shouldn't cost more than £1. Good idea, but hard to enforce, isn't it? Hard to enforce, but, well, I suppose he could enforce it. Yeah. He's got some other policies that you know, I think people will like, actually. He's going to build at least one social house. And that's more honest, isn't it, than 1.5 million. He's going to make sure one at least is built. So I think that he certainly seems to have come forward with more policies than reform. So he's got a few, hasn't he? He's got a few. He's got a few. The Sun newspaper, my 12 million lotto win binned. Mum found out she'd won 12 million on the lotto, but a shopkeeper had thrown her ticket in the bin. Well, normally with lottery winners, you're the one who says, I had the ticket and then I've lost it, but please pay me. But this is an unusual story because this mum seems to be claiming her £12 million lottery ticket was lost by the shopkeeper. So she's called Kath Main, and she won in the June the 6th jackpot, checked her ticket, and it found she's claiming that the shop had thrown it away. So how could she have checked it? I don't understand. Well, maybe she used the same numbers or family birthdays. I mean, I had a friend of mine who was a producer at a radio station I used to work on for many years, and she always did the same lottery numbers every single week.
and she won £7 million but couldn't find the ticket.
Wow.
And it destroyed her.
Wow.
It absolutely destroyed her. So she you know,
That's
can you imagine?
incredible, isn't it?
Incredible. She just there was nothing she could do. But she did the same numbers every week. I mean, she showed me all the other tickets that she got in her wallet that were the same numbers.
I think you just got to do it online, and then at least if you do it online, not that, of course, you know, I'm encouraging people to gamble, but if you do it online, then you don't have to worry about the ticket.
Ugh, it broke her. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Can you imagine that?
story.
She's turning up to work at a radio station in the early hours or late at night for pennies, and she could have 7 million in the...
And she'd have known because it was probably family birthdays or
Yeah,
draw numbers.
She had the same tickets in her wallet.
Yeah.
She kept them all. I don't know why. And she said, look, there's the same number, because she was so distressed about it. She's going, look, it's the same numbers, it's the same numbers. But even though she'd done the same numbers all that time, there was no proof that she'd done it this time, and therefore
so sad.
she wasn't allowed the money. Yeah, I mean, 12 million, that would be heartbreaking as well, wouldn't it? But
yes.
I just... The Guardian going with revealed more reform transactions worth millions reported to the crime agency. Now, this is how the story got out in the first place, was that the £5 million landed in Nigel Farage's bank account. The banks now are duty-bound to report any unusual sums of money. And like I was saying yesterday, you and I can't give each other £10,000. It have to be £9,999 without it triggering a fraud probe, or at least questions about where the money came from. So that's what triggered this whole thing. It was that bankers informed the National Crime Agency, I think, which they are duty-bound to do, and then the National Crime... I don't know who passed that on to the papers or how they got hold of it, but that's how the story got out. But a host of transactions involving Reform's UK's most senior figures and donations to the party caused bankers to report potential money laundering concerns to the National Crime Agency. So there's more. And you've got to remember as well that Reform is not a political party, it's a business.
Yes, exactly. It's still not properly constituted
as
a political
company.
party.
Yeah.
And I think what the Guardian alleges about Nigel Farage is they had some allegations they wanted to make to him, and they gave him until 1 o'clock, I think it was yesterday or the day before, to respond. And he didn't respond, and instead called the press conference shortly after 2 o'clock, where he announced he was going to stand down and trigger the by-election. So the Guardian is making a lot of the running on this story, and does seem to have an awful lot of information about these donations. And it is a story that is just definitely not going to go away.
It's definitely not going to go away. And I think the more that Reform try to blouse this out, the more questions are going to be asked. And look, he's not done anything illegal at this stage, right? All he did was, you know, potentially break a rule. And if he had declared that money, none of this would have happened. None of it. It would have just been, OK, so people would be asking questions about it, but he wouldn't have broken any rules. So people would be going, well, I wonder if that's why he went to see the Bank of England and talk about cryptocurrency. I wonder if that's why he's done that. But as I was saying the other night, that's why we need to know. You know, the reason we knew about Starmer's suits and freebies, because they were declared.
Exactly.
So that's how we knew.
And
about
I think he famously said to the BBC at the time, a BBC reporter said, when he was asked about this, he said, none of your business.
Yeah, well,
and there's an argument that sometimes it isn't people's business, but if you take a large amount of money from a billionaire, crypto billionaire in Thailand, and you then start to lobby or perhaps influence the way that crypto is run and governed in this country, that's the sort of thing people do want to know about. Now, again, Nigel Farage would deny that that's how things played out, but it can look that way. If you're taking large sums of money who's involved in a particular business, and then you lobby, then get involved in that business, and you want to be a politician, that's the sort of thing there's a legitimate public interest in, and that's what a lot of these questions are focused on. And Nigel Farage is deeply uncomfortable answering them. And the bigger problem he's faced is he's changed his story about what the money was for. He initially talked about it being for his personal security, understandable, but he's since changed his story.
But at the same time, George Cottrell was paying for his security.
Exactly.
So it you know, look, I think he's too deep in it now. But and there will be more coming out. You've got the Guardian and the Times now, and there will be other papers as well who are going to be digging around, because nothing makes you dig around more than somebody who's going, don't look at this.
Exactly, and it will extend to other areas of his life, and he won't like this, but it's the scrutiny other politicians have faced for 20, 30, 40, 50 years about their housing, who's funded their housing, how they bought their houses.
Yeah.
I mean, Nigel Farage has several houses. I remember these questions were always asked of Tony Blair, they were asked of David Cameron, and Nigel Farage has a reasonable chance, or did have, certainly, of being the next Prime Minister. It's entirely legitimate for people to want to know where his money's come from and how that might influence what he has to say about public policy.
Yeah, because in his speech that he made yesterday, he was saying, oh, people don't like politicians earning money. And it's like, we don't care if you earn it. I mean, that's between you and Clacton, right? If you're never there and you're always out earning money, that's fine. You know, nobody cares about that. We're not talking about earned money. We're talking about money arriving and us not knowing why. You know, and did it buy any influence that it shouldn't have bought? That's it. That's the only question we have to ask. Let's take a quick break, but Vincent and I'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie, and with me is the fabulous Vincent Moss, former political editor. The Metro has gone with Trump tears peace plan hopes into pieces. He was saying they're scum, sick, vicious, violent people. And he also was saying that he can't be bothered with it anymore.
Yeah, he sounded, even by Trump's standards, increasingly frustrated, and the language is really, really strong.
Really not helpful.
No, but saying that it basically fed up with the negotiations. He says his negotiators can stay and continue talking if they want, but he's had enough of it. And we saw pretty much the change of tack with the airstrikes on Iranian targets again. So there is a fear that if things continue to escalate, the peace process is effectively dead. It was always quite fragile. The memorandum of understanding was had plenty of holes in it, and negotiations were going on, but by all accounts weren't making much headway. And we've seen Iranian attacks on ships in the Strait of Hormuz, and seen an American response to that.
Yeah,
So,
well, they reckon that Iran is going to hit really hard, and not just at American bases.
Yeah.
So there's talk, I mean, it will probably be oil facilities and gas facilities that they will strike.
yeah, and we've seen the impact with oil prices starting to rise again.
Starting to rise again. But it was a very odd NATO summit for someone. I watch these things quite closely, but it was very strange. And Trump did not seem to be right. He didn't seem to be right. When he got off the plane, he was being guided by Erdogan, who tucked under his arm and was sort of moving him around. Trump seemed to be a little bit disoriented. And then today he was sitting with Zelensky and saying that the Islamic Republic of Japan, where he clearly meant Iran.
Yeah.
And it's just like it wasn't corrected, and you can see Zelensky's face going, "Oh right, yeah, that's what he means. He means Iran." But that is a big gaffe. And he also went and said, "Does anybody have any questions for Vladimir Putin?" and pointed to Zelensky. And then he kind of, because I'm talking to Vladimir Putin later on, so he tried to recover from that one. But Biden once called Vladimir Zelensky Putin as well, and Trump gave him such a hard time for that and said he's not fit to be a president. But of course, when Trump does it,
yes.
But yeah, Islamic Republic of Japan. Ugh. Anyway, Trump sucked the oxygen out of the room on that NATO summit when they should have been talking about Russia, really. The Daily Star, they seem to have adopted bin face. He stood there with a Daily Star. "What can I offer? I'm not Farage," he says. "Our favourite politician, Count Binface, says Nigel Farage will be toast, adding, 'I'll eat him for brekkie.'" These are the pages that Farage does not want.
No, they're not. And the Star
They're
ran a
not
very
serious. They're not taking him seriously. They're not taking reform seriously. This is a disaster.
Well, they managed, the Daily Star, to stick a lettuce on the front for a long time and make great fun of Liz Truss.
Oh, we did Lettuce Watch on this programme.
Exactly.
Loved it.
So if they stick bin face on the front every day for the next few weeks, that won't do much for Nigel Farage's prospects in
it
Clapton.
really won't. But the iPaper has said Count Binface faces costume ban if he beats Farage. And this is what I was saying to you earlier. What world are we in when the Commons, it must have been the Speaker, because isn't he the person who makes these decisions? Very senior politician has to make a decision that Binface can't wear his bin.
Well, presumably, I imagine the great investigative journalists they have on the iPaper, that somebody rang up and said to the Speaker's office and said, "Would you allow an MP to wear a bin in the House of Commons?" And there are very strict rules. I think there are rules banning
covering
hats.
your face and head.
Wearing, exactly, and all those sort of things. So if you can't get away with a cap or a hat, you're certainly not going to get away with a bin, are you?
Oh, I think it's a shame. There's more problems for reform as former Tory Robert Jenrick is now being investigated by the police. This is not by the Standards Committee, but the police have launched an investigation into £37,500 donation to Robert Jenrick's campaign. This is a campaign to become Conservative leader. Do you remember when it did Jenrick's Junk or whatever it was called? Was it him did all the freebies, you know, with his name on it?
Yes.
I think he did all of that, didn't he? All the tat. I can't remember what it's called, but so he's repeatedly denied that he or his campaign broke any electoral law and tells the iPaper's allegations are lies and entirely false. He claims that the establishment is determined to stop reform, where he is now Treasury spokesman, and says the police have not contacted him. So we better leave that where it is, since the police are involved in that, because that sounds like it is a criminal act as opposed to just being a breaking of rules. The Daily Express siding with Nigel, saying Farage, Labour and the Tories are running scared. That's certainly not the impression I get. I think they're playing a game, aren't they?
They are. They seem to be quite enjoying it, making a few jokes at his expense, you know, all sorts of jokes, you know, about rubbish, and plays on words with that. So one MP's rubbish and the other's Nigel Farage, or the other way around, whatever it works. But Yes, I think it's one that Farage has got to tough out, and the Express being quite supportive and saying it's serious, it's important, up to the people of Clacton decided. And the line that the Reform always keep using, it's an establishment conspiracy and they're out to get Reform and out to get Nigel, and that's going to be very much his line. As what looks likely to be, you know, a fairly imminent by-election.
Yeah, could be 4 weeks away, couldn't it? 4 or 5 weeks ago. Reform leader who forced the vote suggested that Labour and the Tories are showing contempt for voters in the Clacton seat. He's warned the future of our democracy depends on who wins. So he's really going in with the narrative, isn't he? It's like, way. The Independent has gone with Trump tears up Iran ceasefire as bombing resumes. We don't know which. I mean, Trump does not want and cannot afford for this to start up again. So I think he'll have to back off it again.
Well, talking is the only solution. I always say that about war, but it really is in this case, because however much he bombs from the air Iran, because of the way they control their own people and they control the media and they control information, there's no chance of that being successful. Trump won't put boots on the ground.
No.
So the only solution is some kind of negotiated deal.
But I don't know how you deal with people that you've just called scum. I mean, the Iranians, look, I have no time for the Iranian regime. The Iranian people, on the other hand, are anything but scum. But the regime, I would potentially agree with that. But it's not very diplomatic to say it and to rattle that particular cage, because they're not going to back off from that. It's just grist to the mill for them.
They're not. It's evidence of his huge frustration, though, because he thinks that things have been agreed in the room, and then the Iranians come out of the talks and say that's not what was agreed, we didn't even discuss it. Now, it's very hard to tell because Trump is not averse to over-embellishing some of the claims of the talks he's been involved in sometimes. They may not be true, but also the Iranians are hardly reliable sources either.
No.
But he seemed genuinely frustrated about where he thinks he's making progress. He says he's the king deal maker, and then the Iranians come out of meetings and say none of this was agreed. And I think that's frustration really spilled over, and in probably an ideal world he may even privately regret using words like scum, because it's clearly not helpful when he's talking about the Iranians. But it's out there now, and yes, I can't imagine that's going to help the peace talks.
It's definitely not going to help the peace talks, and I just don't like this sort of behaviour either from somebody who's supposed to be the president of of America and leader of the free world. It makes everybody look bad and just plays into the sick regime that is Tehran's regime. It just plays into their hands. It's just extraordinary. Right, we haven't got a lot of time left, but let's just have a look at the Mirror. I think the Mirror will be backing Count Bin Face, won't they? Bin him off. That's a really good headline, actually. Sleaze probe election farce. Thank you, Vincent.
Pleasure.
Who thought we'd be talking so much about bins?
Exactly.
Extraordinary. Vincent Moss, former political editor there, going through the papers for a Thursday. Now, though, it is just you and me, and I want to talk to you about the joy or not of driving.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning to you. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and this is your hour. And I want to have a chat with you this morning about how the joy has been kicked out of driving. I'm sick of it. I'm just so bored of the whole situation. I want to hear from you if you are a professional driver as well. So any of you cabbies or anything like that, just tell me what it's like on a daily basis, battling all of the things that we now have to battle as drivers. I want to hear from you about the speed limits, about the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, and particularly in Wales as well. That's I think it's pretty much blanket, or were they rejected? I can't remember now, because I know the Welsh were really, really upset about it. But there are a lot of 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. So London is pretty much all completely 20 miles an hour. It's a safe bet anyway. But the joy of driving is just not there anymore. And I think it's because of the amount of fines we get. I think it's also about the parking. It's all of those things that have really made driving such a chore. Everything about it now is just a battle. So, and like I said, I particularly feel sorry for professional drivers, cab drivers, mini car drivers, whatever they're called, drivers, private hire drivers, because you're on the road all day. How do you, if I go out for one journey, I come home and I'm paranoid that I've got a fine for something, and I always wait for the next couple of days to see if I have. So it's taken the joy out of driving. But one of the things that's taken the joy out of driving is these speed limits, 20 miles an hour. And it's 20 miles an hour, 24 hours a day in London, which I think is madness. 70 miles an hour as well on motorways is now considered to be too slow, because of the way that cars are built these days, that actually we've got much safer vehicles, much better cars, much safer. They practically drive themselves, and yet the speed limits haven't changed. Do you think that speed limits should be increased? Not in towns and stuff. I completely agree that they should be 30 or 20, I suppose. I mean, 20, I'm sort of used to it now, but it took quite a while, and I never get out of second gear, so it can't be good for the car. Never get out of second gear. It just doesn't happen. So, but London's so slow anyway that 20 is okay, except when I go home at night. That's really boring, when the driver's got to stick to 20 and there's literally nothing else on the roads. So I basically just want to talk about driving. Do you still have a car? Can you still afford a car? Have you had to get rid of your car? How do you feel when you have to get rid of your car? I've always insisted that I will have a car. I won't even get one of these, you know, lease hire things where you get a brand new car every 3 years, because I want to own my car. I don't want to rent my car. And I may not ever drive it. I may drive it once a week or once a fortnight, but I am not getting rid of it, because it means so much to me, that independence that I first felt when I first started driving, getting a driver's license for the first time, getting a car for the first time, all of those things that it provides. And it seems that everybody now wants us to get out of our cars. Of course, they don't get out of their cars, but they want us all on public transport. So have you had to get rid of a vehicle? Maybe you're too old to drive now and you've had to get rid of your car. How did that feel? Because one day, I suppose my son will have to wrestle my car keys out of my crinkly old hand, because I won't be safe on the roads. But to me, it is such a fundamental, basic right to be able to drive and to enjoy driving. And I think that that is being destroyed. It's being destroyed by all the rules. It's being destroyed by all the cameras. I'm not suggesting you even breaking the rule. I never set out to break a rule. If I drive down a road that I've driven down 100 times before and suddenly it's a low traffic neighbourhood and I haven't noticed it, or there's a tiny little sign that you've got to be reading, that's when I get fined. Or if you turn left across a bus lane and you're not meant to do that, that's when I'll get a fine. So I never set out to do anything wrong, but I will get fined for it anyway. So I'd like to hear from you on this. I think it's a basic right for all of us to have the right to drive. I think it will also become the preserve of the very rich. I think that they will be the only ones that can afford to drive because of the fines. They don't care. You see them near Harrods. I saw a gold-plated something the other day parked outside Harrods on a double yellow. Didn't care. Obviously they could afford it. They don't care. They can just do what they want, and they don't care getting fined. People speeding, they don't care because they get a speeding fine, so what? And they probably then, you know, get somebody else to drive the car for them if they can't drive. So all of these rich people don't care. But you had a situation in London again when we had this ULEZ thing. So I had to get rid of my old Mini because it was dangerously close to falling out of the ULEZ bracket. And I could afford to do that. So I was able to buy a newer car, not a new car. I can't afford a new car. And also, I don't think there's any point buying one because as soon as you drive it off, it loses value. But a lot of people in outer London had to get rid of their cars. They had no choice. They couldn't afford to buy new ones, and they are now without vehicles. It is being destroyed for us. Everything is being destroyed. So I'd like to hear from you on this. Have you got rid of your car because you prefer public transport? Maybe you think it is good in London. There's no doubt about it. If you could use it, if you can use public transport, then it's a great option. I can't use it. And that makes your world very small if you can't drive your car. And that's because of my immune system. So that to me, it's not possible. So a lot of people who can't use public transport need their cars. But have people given up now in owning a car? Is it just not worth it? I tell you what's interesting is that my son's age group, he was born in Germany, but brought up in London from day one, and he's never had a car. He's never taken a driving licence. He's never had to because of public transport, because it goes so well, because you know he can hire a Lime bike. He cycles everywhere actually, because it's cheaper. So he will probably never have a car. He will probably never have a car. So maybe this is just the future, that we have to get used to the fact that we're not going to drive. Maybe, is that the answer? Is that the thing? 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word TALK and your message to 87222. So do you still enjoy the process of driving? I mean, I love that. I think it's just because it just takes me back to when I got my first car and the love of the independence, the freedom. And that's what the car represents to me now. It is an it's feeling like I can go anywhere at any time that I want to. The fact that I choose not to is up to me, but it's there. I can get in it, I can go immediately to Shropshire to see my sister, or I can, you know, drive somewhere to see somebody that I want to go and see. It is so intrinsically part of my psyche to have that freedom, and I don't understand people who don't feel the same way. I just don't. But I'd love to hear from you on this. Let me know if you have the same feeling about driving, or if it's been utterly destroyed for you. 0344 499 1000. Roy is in Hampshire. Evening, Roy, or morning, Roy, I should say.
Yeah, good morning, darling. Spoke to the, night before last.
Oh, yeah. How are you doing? All right? Enjoying the heat?
Right. Yeah, there's no joy in driving anymore, Davey. It's just a cash cow.
It's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no joy at all. I mean, I was driving before the speed limit came on the motorway.
Oh, really?
It was I suppose in about 1970 we had the oil crisis, and they made it 70 mile an hour on the motorway, just so it had cut. You weren't using so much fuel, and then they found it was saving lives, so they stuck to 70. But there's no joy anymore. I was a cabbie in Basingstoke, and I got done twice There was a guy in Basingstoke on his motorbike. I got done the first time. I was doing 34 in a 30, and another time he did me. I was doing 33 in a 30. But that road used to be 40 mile an hour. There's one straight road in Basingstoke. It used to be 40, and there was a woman. She got 12 points in one day.
Oh, wow.
She was taking the kids to school. She got done. On the way back from school, she got done. When she picked the kids up in the afternoon, he's there again. She got done. And she got done after she got 12 points in one day. He used to park about half a mile up the road, and he'd get his old speed camera out and he'd do you, and you never knew he was there. He did hundreds and hundreds of people in Basingstoke.
Did you ever have to do I mean, it's horrible, isn't it? I suppose people would say, well, just don't speed then. But it's not always as simple as that, is it?
It's not. I mean, luckily, I mean, I don't do much driving today. I just go down to my local shop. I have my groceries delivered now.
Yeah.
And, I suppose I might do about 70, 80 miles a year.
Oh, wow.
It's only a mile down there, but I live on the top of a hill, and I can't walk down there and walk back up.
Yeah.
I've got trouble with my hips. So I need a car. But I just think it's strange. All it is now, lovey, is to speak. It's a cash cow.
And it's such a shame because, for me, it is so representative of independence and freedom and all of those things. The right to be able to just go somewhere is so important. At least it is to me, and maybe it's my age. But I think that when you first got your car, it was the biggest deal, wasn't it? It was the biggest freedom that you would ever have.
Before I had cars, I had a Lambretta and a Vespa, and then I got a motorbike, and then I got a car. I learned to drive in the armed forces. They taught me to drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it does represent more than just a vehicle.
It is. It's your, as you say, it's your independence.
Yeah.
If I didn't have my car, I couldn't go down to my local shop, and there's a post office there. I go down there every month and I pay my rent and pay my council tax down there.
And you get to decide when to do that. You get to decide when to do that. You don't have to call a cab, or you don't have all of these things. And I think it is so basic for me anyway. I'm just interested to see if other people feel as passionately as I do about it. What it represents for us. It's not just a vehicle, is it? It's something else.
Yeah, but Petra, it started in last October, and I finished up in February. I've just had both cataracts done in my eyes.
Oh, wow.
And to get to the hospital, it cost me £200 in taxi fares.
What?
200 quid.
See, that's just not feasible, is it?
Yeah, I had to go up there, and the first time they wouldn't do it because of my blood pressure. Then I had to go back again, and then I had to go back after they'd done it, and then I had to go for my second eye, and then I had to go back again, and then they signed you off. Yeah, £200 in taxi fares I had to fork out.
And if you'd driven, it'd be a couple of quid, right?
Yeah. Well, as I say, I can't drive to the hospital because where you park, you've got to walk up all these flights of stairs, stone stairs, to get to the entrance of the hospital, and I can't do it.
Well, that seems discriminatory, doesn't it, for people who may be ill or disabled?
Yeah. It's just the layout. It's the way that they've done it. Yeah, it's terrible. But who was the guy before Boris, the Lord Mayor?
Ken Livingstone.
Ken Livingstone. When he started all this in London, I had to take some people up to Great Ormond Street Hospital. And what he did on this particular day, I know London like the back of my hand. All the traffic lights, he put on red for about 4 or 5 minutes, and they were green for a minute. So he caused the problems.
Yes, he did.
Tailbacks. He did it on purpose.
Just before he brought in the congestion charge. Yeah, that was fairly well documented.
The £5 charge. Yeah.
Yeah, it was £5. It's now 18. going up to 19, I think, soon.
Yeah, to drive to your own city of London
Yeah.
costs you 18 quid. It's disgusting.
It is disgusting. And do you know what? It has made no difference to the traffic. I've lived in London for decades, and it has made not a jot of difference. It has not reduced congestion at all. Not one. I'm telling you, the traffic jam's still as bad. The pinch areas are still horrible. There are, all of those things. It has never made a difference. It is just money. I don't know how they've got the nerve to take it from us.
That speed camera, I think it's when you come off of the M11. I think, I don't know, a few years ago, it was getting £1 million a year, that just one camera. So you work it out. It's just a cash cow, lovey.
But it's such a shame, isn't it? Because it shouldn't be like that. I mean, I don't mind anybody being caught, fined, done, whatever, for wantonly breaking the law, right? For doing 60 in a 30, right? That's wanton. But somebody doing 33 in a 30, that's not wanton. That's not deliberately, kicking the backside out of the law. That's not speeding, as far as I would say, right?
But Petrie, it's making it dangerous now. If you're doing 20 mile an hour, your eyes are on your speedo.
All the time.
Looking out your windscreen.
Yeah. Before I got used to the feel of it, which I am now used to the feel of it, for months I would be looking at the speedo.
Yeah.
All the time. In fear of going over 20, and it's very slow. But they want to bring in 10 miles an hour now in some areas.
Which is ridiculous. All it is, Brown started this, didn't he? He stopped them building houses with a drive.
Yeah.
So that it would take cars off of the road.
Yeah. They want it to be as miserable as possible.
Yeah.
And I will fight that until, like I said, my son has to wrestle the keys out of my hand, because it's so important to me. If I didn't have a car, even though I barely use it, Roy, if I didn't have it there, it would panic me.
But our poor old country, Petra. I mean, I'll tell you, my great-grandfather, he fought in the Boer War. My other grandfather, he was a stoker in the Royal Navy. My dad, he was in the First World War. I had 3 uncles in the Second World War, and I'm ex-military, and I had 3 brothers, and we all served. I fought all over the world for this country. And when I think what's happened to our poor old country, it brings tears to my eyes.
Yeah, well, it would, with your family putting so much work into it. Yeah. It absolutely would. Just the basic fun of driving is now just being taken off us as well.
It's fun out of everything, lovey, isn't it?
Yeah, to be fair, they have. Yeah. Well, I mean, where is the joy? Where is it? I can't find it. Apart from talking to you, Roy, obviously. Yeah. That gives me joy.
Lovey. Well, God bless you, lovey. Keep up the good job.
Thank you, my love. There's Roy in Hampshire there. No joy in driving anymore. What do you think? How important is it to you? I can't maybe I sound like a bit of a weirdo, but it's so important to me to have a car. I can't tell you. Well, listen, give me a call. Has the joy been taken out of driving completely? And I want to hear if you've ever been fined for speeding or fined for something stupid while you've been driving, which is why the joy has been kicked out of it. And have you ever done a speed awareness course? That's what I want to know, because I never have, because I've never been caught speeding. Chose my words carefully there. 0344 499 1000. Quick break, back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning to you. It is Talk, and this is Talk Back with me, Petrie. And we're talking at the moment about driving. Because there's been a big report out, actually, from the RAC, which is why we got onto this topic, about 7 in 10 police forces caught drivers travelling at twice the speed limit or more on 30-mile-an-hour roads last year. So, I mean, basically, we were talking about speed limits as well, and are they too restrictive? But I want to know as well from you if driving just isn't the joy that it used to be. And I know I'm sounding a little bit strange about this, but I am really, I am so weird about owning a car. I have to have a car. And even if I don't use it, I have to know it's there. I also have to know that it's got enough fuel in it. I have to know that it's, you know, got its MOT and insure, all of those things, and that it is ready to go at a moment's notice. And it's not like there are often reasons for why I need my car immediately. I mean, there was at one point when my brother was in and out of hospital, that was pretty tricky. So I had to just suddenly get in the car and drive off and go and see him. But since then, not so much. But I have a sister who lives in Shropshire, and if anything happened to her, if she needed me, if she just called me at 3 o'clock in the morning and said I'd be in that car and I'd be on the road and I would be with her as quickly as possible. The same for any of my friends, to be perfectly honest with you. If they needed me, I need to know that the car's there, right? Because if it wasn't there, I would be freaking out, even though I don't, you know, I am available for those phone calls for my friends, but of course, it doesn't happen. At least, fingers crossed, it doesn't happen. But I need to know that if it does happen, just in case, that I have my car, and I will never get rid of my car, ever. But it is not enjoyable to drive it anymore. It's not like it used to be, and that's partly because of all these stupid fines and things like that come along, but it's also a lot of other drivers are really aggressive, unnecessarily rude. It's just not a pleasant experience anymore. And like I've been saying, when I was younger, it meant so much to me. When I passed my driving test and I got my £50 Mini, I just can't tell you how that made me feel. And I think that's why it's so important to me today, that it's that residual feeling of owning a car and being able to be truly independent, to go somewhere that nobody else knows where I'm going, that nobody needs to know. There's no official record of it. Not that I'm breaking the law or anything, but it's important to me. It used to be the anonymity of being able to drive around, but of course that is no longer the case. But I want to hear from you. Does it matter to you as much, or am I just that weird? It's entirely possible, but I do like to check with you guys. Pauline is in Salford in Manchester. Pauline, you drive for a living.
I do.
That must be how do you do that without a nervous breakdown?
Well, I mean, look, mainly I drive locally, but on a Monday I'll travel to Yorkshire to collect stock, and then I'll go over to Blackburn and collect stock from there, and then
so decent mileage then.
Oh, I'll probably do about 500. 600 miles a week.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Well, it is by the time I've done all my deliveries, because I actually sell online, but I only sell locally.
Right.
And I only do deliveries unless they won't pay delivery charge, and they can come and collect. But it's hard work. But when you drive professionally, you do know where the speed traps are.
Yeah.
You do.
And I suppose the new things like Waze, I use Waze, and that will always warn you as well. the satellite thing. That was
no, mine doesn't actually. Occasionally it does, but I mean, I've got to say that. Oh, are you there?
Yeah, still here.
Oh, sorry, my phone went off then. I've got to say that I could probably run the speed awareness course.
Really?
Yeah, I've done it. I think I've done it 6 times now.
I thought you were only allowed to do it once or twice, or is that?
Oh no, I mean, yeah, you're allowed to do it, but it varies of what.
I suppose the speed you're doing
offense,
and
what offence you've been accused of or committed for. So it might be going through a red light, and genuinely it can be an amber. You go through and you think, oh, I'm just getting through. So you get 3 points for that, and then you get the speed awareness course, and then and honestly, I mean, it's I could run them.
Are they any good? I mean, I mean, they are just a cash cow, right? Because you're paying about 100 quid.
You know, it's like you do get an update of the latest rules that have come into force. I mean, I'm 62. You know, I've been driving for almost 40 years.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've got to say that, I mean, oh, I never realised that. But what gets me on the Zoom calls is that the amount of people that they're on the Zoom calls, they can't speak English.
Oh, really?
So they've got an interpreter at the back of them. It might be a family member. And I'm thinking, well, hang on. If they can't speak English, how the hell should they be driving?
Well, that is a good question, because you need to be able to at least read English, right? You need to be able to read it, to know what the limits are and such.
Yeah. But I've got to admit, there was one Zoom call that I actually fell asleep.
Oh, you should have got those Homer Simpson glasses.
Said, Pauline, are you still there? I went, oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, you need those Homer Simpson glasses with the eyeballs painted on it, so it looks like you're awake and you can sleep behind them. But how do you? I mean, I guess where you drive a lot of country roads, do you? A lot of
no. I mean,
there are
most of mine are estates or whatever. But where I've been caught with the speeding is when it's been motorways where they've had. What do they call it?
Oh, the average speed camera, the average check.
Yeah, because they've got roadworks.
Yeah.
But there's no bugger words on them.
No, I know.
I mean, I got caught at 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning at one point. There wasn't another single car on the road.
No, that's just... You see, that sort of thing is what really annoys me, because then not all speeding is equal.
Yep.
It's not.
And I must admit, the last time I got caught, I thought, oh, shit. I had, I think I had 9 points. I did have 9 points on my licence. I thought, shit, I'm going to get banned on this, which would literally, I would be, well, I couldn't run my business, full stop. But for some reason, and I really don't know why, they gave me the speed awareness course. So,
I'll take that. Yeah, thanks very much. Not going to question that.
I'll take the 100 and whatever fine. I'll pay the fine and I'll do the speed awareness course. And I'm so proud of myself. I'm down to 3 points.
Oh, well done. How long does it take to get rid of points? I've never had a point. I'm going to touch wood at this point. Oh, there isn't any. It's all plastic.
Oh,
anyway.
Oh, God, you're a virgin.
I know. I haven't had any points on my licence. That's quite amazing, isn't it?
Yes. That's all I'm going to say. Yes. Because it's just...
It's impossible not to, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing, is that I've either been very lucky...
That's a real achievement. In fact, when you go to your graves, you get a gold medal for it.
Yeah, I'm going to have that on my gravestone. Never a point on my licence.
Never got a point.
Although, you know what's going to happen now is I'm going to be driving on Friday and I'm going to get a point on my licence and I'm going to blame you. it's going to be entirely your fault.
Absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. But yeah, no, it's honestly, I was really worried, really worried. In fact, I actually looked into buying an electric bike because you don't need a license for that. But I thought, oh, shit, I can't do that because I have 3 businesses. One's cleaning, one's ironing, and one's selling online.
Oh, you definitely need your car then.
Oh, well,
and you need to put bulky things in your car.
Sorry?
You need to put things in your car. One of the reasons another reason I can't use the trains is...
I have a big car.
Yeah.
I couldn't have a little Minute. I need to have a big car because of the amount of deliveries I do.
Yeah, yeah.
But I did get to the point a couple of years ago regarding the benefit system, and I said, why am I working? Seriously, why am I working?
Yeah, but it sounds like you're a person who quite likes to be busy.
Well, I was brought up with the work ethic.
Yeah, me too. It would be very difficult, wouldn't it, just to not?
Well, I wouldn't. I wouldn't stop work.
No.
I wouldn't stop work. But the joke is that I probably started, the 90% of my customers are on benefits, and it really pees me off. Really pees me off when I see what they're getting. But I just think, you know what, I can hold my head up, Alex.
Exactly. Well, don't get any more points. Try not. You're down to 3 now.
Yes, actually, this month I'm down to 3. I'm so proud of myself.
Well done. Well done. Don't drive in London. There's too many cameras here. You won't get away with it. You just don't.
I would never. In fact, I am going to Clacton this month.
Are you? Are you going to go see Count Binface?
I'll shake his hand and say, good luck, mate.
Yeah. I would so vote for him if I was there. Not just for devilment, really. Wouldn't you? Just for the laugh.
You know what? I think a lot of people that would normally vote for everybody else laugh.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. It's gonna be fun.
No, I'm sorry. I am genuinely going to Clacton. And I've never done anything like that.
Well, enjoy. I've never been to Clacton either, so let me know what it's like when you come back.
Well, my sister went to university there.
Oh, really?
Clacton-on-Sea. Now, she's 70-odd years old now, so God knows if there's still one there. But, yes, but, yeah. Clacton, I'm on my way.
Well, let me know what it's like when you get back to Salford. Pauline, a professional driver, ratcheting up those points. You've got to be careful. I've got to take a break, but I'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk. Oh.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie and this is your Talkback Hour, and we are chatting about driving and the fact that it used to be really fun and nice, and it isn't anymore, and that is largely because of all the rules of the road, and they change, and the speed limits that are so low at the moment. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I wanted to know if you went on a speed awareness course. And Phil in Chelmsford has said, I went on a speed awareness course a couple of years back. I was doing 33 in a 30. 4 hours of condescending, patronising garbage from ex-coppers who were so obnoxious. I would absolutely never do it again, and I would rather pay the fine. I'm going to definitely end up being on one now. I keep saying I've never, no points and never been on one. But Ernie says 90% of people drive safely according to the road conditions. No sensible driver wants to put themselves or others at risk. I agree. I don't drive at 20 unless I'm passing a speed camera. It's too dangerous. If it's a long road, I get bored and start falling asleep. If I'm in traffic, I'm forever looking at the speedometer instead of concentrating on the road. If I'm passing a school or somewhere where there are pedestrians and the speed limit is 30, I might drive at 25. We've got 50-mile-an-hour roads in Wales that used to be 70, with signs saying it's because of pollution, yet there's not a house, a factory or any human life for miles. Of course we have to have speed limits, but drivers are just cash cows now for failing councils who squander our money on anything that nobody wants. And that's from Ernie. And I completely agree with all of that. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. They're just inventing new ways of getting money off us now that don't make any sense at all. Daryl has called from Radlett. Daryl, your first-time caller. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Hello there.
Hello there. So tell me, what's happened to you? Is driving lost its joy?
Definitely. I mean, my son asked me to take him into London to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium to see a gig.
Right.
Okay, so which would have cost him £60 in a Uber.
Yeah.
I said, I'll drive you, it's fine. So off we went, lovely, bit of music on the way, got to the stadium, dropped them off, and then I put the sat-nav back on to go home. It took me down a bus gate lane, if that's what it's called.
Right.
So today I've just received a letter saying I've got a £160 fine to go to a bus gate lane.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
That is brutal.
So I've got 14 days to pay it. If I pay it in 40 days, it's £80.
That's still more than it would have cost for the cab, right?
Exactly that.
I mean, you can't do right for doing wrong, can you? I mean, but that is the sort of thing that absolutely winds me up. And if I really want to swear at this point, you've got to understand that I am somebody who swears a lot away from a studio. I love it. It's one of my favourite hobbies, and I'm very good at it. But that is absolutely crippling, and that's what annoys me. It's not like you deliberately set out to break the rules or the law or anything like that. And if it's a sat-nav that sent you that way, surely they should cover it.
Well, it's an old sat-nav. My van's 8 years old.
Right. So the routes they haven't been changed.
The roads have changed.
Right.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. So.
You want to? I mean, I don't benefit from this in any way. You can check my bank account. I haven't had 5 million dropped in there. Waze on your phone is brilliant. WAZE.
Okay, but then you've got to have it on your lap or.
No, I've got you get the magnet. I've got on the back of my phone. Okay. I've got a magnet on the back. You can't really see it, but I've got a magnet on the back of my phone, and it just goes to a magnetised thing on the dash.
Okay.
But Waze is.
Which is updated all the time.
Yeah, updates all the time. Gives you live traffic, and it also will alert you to police being on the road in case there was an accident. Obviously, that's why they tell you there's police, and also speed cameras. But it's and also while you're driving along, if there's been an accident on the road as well, it'll say there's a car broken down or there's something like that, because it's run by all of the users. So there's millions of people that use it. So if they're stuck in traffic, it shows on their system that you're in traffic. Or if there's a broken down car, another Waze user will alert the system, and then when you're driving along, it'll ask you to confirm it, if you can, that it's still there. So it's like a collective. It's like a cooperative.
Yeah. So that's what I should have been using.
I recommend it. It's just an app. You just download it.
Yeah, sure.
But still, that is such a horrible feeling when you're just trying to do something nice, and
Exactly.
you're trying to just get your boy to a place and back again.
Exactly.
That's horrible. That's what annoys me about the system, is that it's not set up to punish bad people. Right, it's not. The system isn't there to punish horrible drivers or bad people. It's just there to punish everybody.
So I've just got to take it on the chin and pay the £80.
Can you not ask your son to pay it?
Well, I was trying to save my son the money.
I know. Oh, you'll say it's so not fair. That's not fair. I'm gonna. Is there any way you can challenge it, or is it you bang to rights?
I don't think I can.
Oh, that's brutal. But anyway, look, you've got a brand new app now. You're going to download it, and it's really good, and it will alert you to all the different. It's amazing. It does know all the different roads and everything, and when they become.
Yeah, sure.
Because, like I said, because it's a collective. Because other people tell the system that a road has changed or something has happened or whatever, and so you get to find out about it. But I totally recommend it. So use that next time, and you'll never get a ticket again.
All right, thank you, Petra.
Listen, you take care, Darryl. Call again, won't you? It's been lovely talking to you. All right, look after yourself. That really hacks me off, because the system should be about punishing people who wantonly do something wrong, not if you just make a mistake. And what I think should happen in a case like with Darryl, is you get a warning letter. If it's the first time you've ever done it, you should just get a warning letter triggered by the same system saying, what you've just done is drive down this road, which is, buses, whatever, don't do it again. Next time you'll be fined. They could do that. They could do that easily. And they could have done that with me, with the low traffic neighbourhood. You've just driven down a road that's a low traffic neighbourhood. Next time you do it, we know you're doing it deliberately, and you'll get a fine. But not the first time, right? The system is set up to punish people who make genuine mistakes, and that is not what it was meant to be. I'm going to take a quick break, but I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk to an ex-copper in just a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning to you. This is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you until the top of the hour. I just want to read this is horrifying to me. In cab, driver-facing AI cameras are making driving for a profession an anxiety-inducing nightmare. If you take your eyes off the road for more than 1.5 seconds, you face a disciplinary, which makes driving in unfamiliar areas, looking out for hazards and addresses, almost impossible. That sounds dangerous to me. That's awful. So you've got to rigidly sit like, oh, no, awful. John is in Staffordshire, and John is an ex-copper. Hello, John.
Hi, Petrie. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing? Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm also an ex-RAF MTD, which is a driver in the RAF.
Oh, wow.
So I've got every single driving licence apart from cranes and trains, I think.
Cranes and trains. Well, I'm old enough to be able to drive a van without, I can drive a bus, I think, because my licence...
Same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah, so we've got those old licences.
Yeah, as you said, I'm an ex-policeman, and I think the biggest mistake we ever made in this country was getting rid of traffic police.
Yes, I agree. And relying on cameras now.
Because traffic police could use their discretion when the police still have discretion.
Yeah.
And they could pull you up, point out a mistake, and you would go, yeah, fair enough, and you'd go on your way.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And there was a time when I was pulled over. I was on the A40 coming into town, and I was going a bit fast. And I was pulled over by the cops, and they said, look, you're not driving dangerously, but if you're driving fast, everybody behind you drives fast. You're sort of leading the pack. And they explained it to me, and I was a lot younger, and I probably battered my eyelids, and I got off with it. And he just said, look, that's a warning for you. Just be careful. But had that been a camera, there's no discretion there, right?
Would that have a better effect on how you drove in the future?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It absolutely did. I stuck to stuck to speed limits, and I always have. I've never been done for speeding ever. But yeah, it definitely did.
I've been done for speeding. I've been on a speed awareness course as an ex-copper.
How did that go?
Terrible. The guys who were run the course knew I was an ex-copper.
Oh.
And they tried. What's the best way of putting it? They tried highlighting the fact and making an example of me.
Oh.
And basically, I just shut them down.
Yeah, because it's all run by ex-coppers, isn't it?
No, it's not. No. I want to point this out as well on your show. It's definitely not ex-coppers. The majority of them who run the course aren't ex-coppers. Generally, they're private organisations, but
making millions.
Probably, I don't know.
They are. They're making millions.
No idea.
Yeah.
But I've also got a friend who was a colleague in the RAF, and we both worked in the police as well. And they tried singling him out as an ex-copper or a copper on this speed awareness course, and he had none of it either.
Good. One thing I can't stand is bullies, right? I can't bear it.
One thing I can't stand about this speed awareness course is it's a money-making scam.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say that, but it is definitely a moneymaker because you go there and you've got to sit there for 4 hours.
Yeah.
If you actually attend the course, you sat there. My wife's done the same. My wife is probably one of the most law-abiding citizens you would ever meet in your life. That's why that's why I married her. One of the reasons. But she's had to do a speed awareness course for doing 33. in a 30-mile-an-hour zone.
I don't. See, this is where it really hacks me off, because that's not a deliberate speed. That's not 161 miles an hour down the motorway, right? That is an accident. That is a mistake. That's not deliberate.
Exactly.
That's
like
what
you
really
were saying-
annoys me about this whole system at the moment. It's just that they are just brutalising all of us for making genuine mistakes.
Like you were saying, I've lived in Germany for 4 years, and I've drove a car at 180 miles an hour nearly.
Yeah.
On the autobahn.
Yeah. Because they trust us to drive to the road conditions in Germany.
Well, they do, yes. And unfortunately, when they do have a bad accident, it's a really bad one. But the percentage of injuries to the relation to speed is there.
Yeah.
Debatable, really.
Yeah, I mean, I very rarely saw it in Germany. Whereabouts were you in Germany?
I spent 3 years at Gütersloh.
Oh, Gütersloh, yeah.
Yeah, I love Gütersloh. And then I spent a year at Larbrook, which I hated.
I've been to Larbrook as well. I think I was stationed there for a bit.
Hey?
I think was that where the Green Howards are? Or were?
I've no idea. It was right on the border with Holland. But I definitely preferred Gütersloh. Gütersloh was one of the best RAF camps going at the time.
Yeah, RAF Gütersloh. I remember it absolutely very, very well. I was with British Forces Broadcasting, so I was out. I was out at Mönchengladbach.
Oh, Mönchengladbach's fantastic as well.
Yeah, that was great. That was a really good JHQ. So
yeah.
it was brilliant. But yeah, that's where I did all my Germany driving as well, going up to Münster and Berlin and all of those places. It was phenomenally easy to drive in Germany. They got it absolutely right.
Yeah, they've got it spot on. And basically, if you mess up in Germany, if you're driving around town centres or throughout the towns or country roads, if you mess about driving, you get done, which is fair enough. If you're on the autobahn and your car can go a certain speed and you're safe doing it, it works.
Yeah, I completely agree with you as well, because the police were everywhere.
Oh yeah, they were.
And I got done once for not stopping at a stop line. I think that was in the camp, actually. I think that was in JHQ. And I was fined immediately on the spot. And it was when it got to the end of the month, because the money from fines for drivers in Germany goes to the police force.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so they were really keen on at the end of the month, they used to try and make the numbers up.
Well, I got done for jaywalking, which was my only traffic offence.
Oh, yeah, that's a big thing in Germany, yeah.
Yeah, it's massive. I got done 20 marks and my mate argued and he got done 200 marks.
Yeah, I've seen people get done in Dusseldorf for crossing the road without crossing at the proper crossings. It's a real thing, isn't it? It's either legal or illegal. There's no grey area in Germany, and that is what is quite good. You know exactly. There's no grey area. Here. Yeah, we do.
We need that here. We definitely do, and I definitely think we need traffic police back in this country.
Yeah, it's just like you said. You get a warning. They can see, if there's a real problem, if there's an issue, or why you did it. You explain yourself, and then they can just give you a talking to or a fine. These cameras have got none of that nuance. They don't decide. They just take the picture. John, great to talk to you. Thank you, taking me down memory lane there. Final call, I think, goes to Herbie in Harrow. Hello, Herbie.
Yes. Good morning, Petrie.
Morning.
How are you this morning? Yes.
I'm good.
Well, I'm driving at the moment.
Right. Why?
Yes, I'm driving home. So I've been to drop off some stuff in Felixstowe because I'm moving to Felixstowe by the end of the month, and I'm driving home now to carry on packing up and enjoy it. But driving is no longer a pleasure like it used to be.
It's just not, is it?
No, nowhere near it. They're abusive, they don't care, and some of the things they get up to is just unbelievable. Unfortunately, I saw an accident this evening, a motorcyclist, He seemed to be in very bad way.
Oh gosh!
And you know, it's getting bad. The traffic, the M25, a permanent car park.
Oh, it's awful.
It's just unbelievable. It's not the same, Petrie. When I first started, it was a pleasure, but no longer.
That's the thing, isn't it? The joy of it has completely gone, and it is the fault of other drivers that are rude and aggressive and all of that thing. But it's also because you just feel like you're being watched and tricked and trapped, and you know all of that. You make a genuine. You can't make a mistake anymore. It's an immediate fine.
You're being watched every minute of the day, everywhere. I mean, say the M25 on the Essex stretch between 26 and 28, it's been a nightmare this week. You know, it's had nothing but accidents. Why? 4-lane road. It's just unbelievable. You know, these so-called smart motorways are not smart.
Oh, they are a disaster. I think they've banned them now, haven't they? They've got to now undo all of that. Yeah. Herbie, you know, I always imagine you driving around in a VW Beetle, don't you?
Yes. I can imagine. No, I've got a nice high van at the moment, so it's a pleasure